deadlift champion, and Nancy Numbers, the Bunko Red Roller. You'll have your chance to challenge them and many others at the 2017 Senior Games. If you are 50 years or older, you can put your hero skills to the test with over 30 different events. There are physical challenges like swimming, weightlifting, and pickleball. If you are looking for something more leisurely, try dominoes, shuffleboard, and this year, introducing Bunko. Registration is open till September 13th. The 2017 Senior Games run from October 2nd through the 20th. For more information, go to hcflgov.net/seniorgames. Come test your inner superhero.
Hi, I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner Sandy Merman.
And I'm Preston Cook, the Emergency Management Director.
We want to take this opportunity to remind you how important it is to take time to prepare and make a plan for hurricane season.
The west side of Hillsborough County is a terrific place to work, play, and raise a family. But it is important to recognize that the west has the most coastline and homes in Evacuation Zone A. There have been some changes in the evacuation zones, so it's very important to check your zone. We must be very aware of the dangers from tidal flooding, storm surge, and high winds during weather events.
Here are some things you can do to prepare yourself and your family should a major storm threaten our community.
Check those supplies, including medications, your radio, your flashlight, and your batteries.
You may have to evacuate. Remember to keep your emergency kit close at hand.
Make sure you have plans for those pets.
Fuel your car. If evacuation becomes necessary, it will be hard to stop for gas. And remember, residents with special needs should pre-register to further ensure your safety. Remember, it's very important too.
Have a plan, know your plan.
Many of us think that the planet is ours, that we can treat it however we want, and let the next generation clean up the mess. But the truth is, if we don't make changes now, the effects could be irreversible. You see, one piece of trash isn't just one piece of trash. It's one of thousands of pieces of trash that are polluting our waters and killing marine life. So the question is, what do you want to be? Do you want to be the generation that protects our planet, or the one that throws it away? Help keep our paradise litter-free. Find out how you can make a difference in your community by visiting keeptampabaybeautiful.org.
So you have now completed your emergency plan for your family. How about a plan for this family member? Protect your pets during a disaster by including them in your family's emergency plan. Start by making your pet a disaster kit. Put all paperwork into a large Ziploc bag, including a picture of you and your pet, your contact information, vaccination information, and special care instructions. In addition, you should pack certain items to help your pet during the emergency. A 7-day supply of food with bowls, a travel crate, and your pet's favorite toy. Remember, shelters are the place of last resort. Your plan should include being far away from the disaster's epicenter. But if you do find yourself at the shelter, know the rules. Once at the shelter, your pet will be placed in a designated animal section. This is for your pet's safety, as well as other shelter residents. Knowing the shelter rules helps everyone stay safe during an emergency. For more information about shelters, their location, rules, and how to get ready for a disaster, go to hcflgov.net/staysafe.
They come from all over the Tampa Bay region. They are grandparents, innovators, mentors. But they also have secret identities. Meet Backswing Bill, the powerhouse of pickleball. Edith Max Stacks, deadlift champion. And Nancy Numbers, the Bunko Red Roller. You'll have your chance to challenge them and many others at the 2017 Senior Games. If you are 50 years or older, you can put your hero skills to the test with over 30 different events. There are physical challenges like swimming, weightlifting, and pickleball. If you are looking for something more leisurely, try dominoes, shuffleboard, and this year, introducing Bunko. Registration is open till September 13th. The 2017 Senior Games run from October 2nd through the 20th. For more information, go to hcflgov.net/senior games. Come test your inner superhero.
Hi, I'm Hillsborough County Commissioner Sandy Mervin.
And I'm Preston Cook, the Emergency Management Director.
We want to take this opportunity to remind you how important it is to take time to prepare and make a plan for hurricane season.
The west side of Hillsborough County is a terrific place to work, play, and raise a family. But it is important to recognize that the west has the most coastline and homes in Evacuation Zone A. There have been some changes in the evacuation zones, so it's very important to check your zone. We must be very aware of the dangers from tidal flooding, storm surge, and high winds during weather events.
Here are some things you can do to prepare yourself and your family should a major storm threaten our community.
Check those supplies, including medications, your radio, your flashlight, and your batteries.
You may have to evacuate. Remember to keep your emergency kit close at hand.
Make sure you have plans for those pets.
Fuel your car. If evacuation becomes necessary, it will be hard to stop for gas. And remember, residents with special needs should pre-register to further ensure your safety. Remember, it's very important to
Have a plan, know your plan.
Many of us think that the planet is ours, that we can treat it however we want, and let the next generation clean up the mess. But the truth is, if we don't make changes now, the effects could be irreversible. You see, one piece of trash isn't just one piece of trash. It's one of thousands of pieces of trash that are polluting our waters and killing marine life. So the question is, what do you want to be? Do you want to be the generation that protects our planet, or the one that throws it away? Help keep our paradise litter-free. Find out how you can make a difference in your community.
Good morning and welcome to your HART Board of Directors regular meeting. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me thank everyone for showing up this morning. I know there are some people still outside that are trying to get in. So what we're going to do this morning, the first thing is approve the minutes from 2 of our past meetings. And then I'm going to ask for someone to waive the rules to move up the HART Success Plan before public input. And then we can come back to public input. By that way, hopefully, most of the people out the hallway will be in, okay? So I may have a motion to approve the minutes from the public hearing on July 17th and the special board meeting on July 17th.
Move approval.
There's a motion and a second to approve the 2 minutes from those meetings in July. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. We have a motion to waive the rules to bring up now the HART Success Plan out of order before the public hearing, public meeting.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to waive the rules to bring up the HART Success Plan at this point in time. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Opposers likewise. Motion is adopted. Good morning.
Good morning. Everyone here okay? Looking for a presentation to come up, hopefully. There we go. Super.
Excuse me, can someone close that door in the back, please? Where's security? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Morning. Nice to be in front of the board again and share with you really a draft of the process that we've been going through with the board and also with the management team. As the board will recall, we actually also handle the customer satisfaction measurement work for HART. So we really have got a significant system in place to be able to hear the voice of the customer, understand not from an episodic perspective, but really from a comprehensive perspective, those things that are most important to your consumers as they're using your service on a daily basis. One of the core elements about making sure that, as so many people say, we want to get everyone to be on the same page, is to actually have a page, to actually have a document that says, this is what we're trying to achieve, this is the direction of the organization, and most importantly, this is what success looks like. At the board level, we work with public sector organizations all around the world. At the board level, being really clear on what the outcomes are that the board wants to be able to achieve, and then turning to your management team to make that happen. So I want to share with you in a relatively quick fashion what that alignment of success looks like for this organization, getting clarity on the outcomes that the board desires, having management put a plan in place to cause that to occur. Here's the magical part, actually getting your budget to pay for the plan so that the plan is very, very clear to align to be able to be successful. And then from the board perspective, have a performance scorecard. No board in its right mind would agree upon the outcomes and tell the management team, come back to us in a year and let us know how you did. You want to be able to see on a monthly and a quarterly basis, are we doing well, consistent with the plan that we put in place? The plan that I'm going to share with you is designed to achieve two objectives. First, making sure that the taxpayer is able to see measurable value. Taxpayers put a significant investment into the agency, and you want to be able to see measurable value back to that investment that they make, balanced with the quality of the customer experience. Both sides are important, and in public sector work, we have to achieve both of those sides. The plan that's in front of you is designed to do exactly that. So three core components that I want to take you through. The first is, what does success look like? Quantifiably, not this ambiguous language where anyone can define success as they might choose. Truly, what does success actually look like? Second, how will the management team go about making that happen? Boards do what? Management teams do how? Boards align on what success looks like. It's the management's team's responsibility to put a plan and a budget in place for your consideration to cause that to occur. And then finally, the last step, who is responsible for the delivery of that? With names, rank, and serial number. Absolute clarity as to who is responsible within the organization to cause that to occur. So at the what level, at the board level, at the what success looks like, it's mission, vision, clarity of the outcomes. At the how level, it's those strategic areas of focus. What are the big rocks that we have to focus on in order to be able to deliver success as the board adopts it? What is the work plan, the tactics as we call them? And then aligning, as you're going to hear later this morning, aligning the budget to pay for those work activities that will allow us to be successful. And then finally at the bottom, putting in place that performance scorecard that will allow us to track not simply a lot of data. Government tends to be amazing at data. We tend to be poorer at turning that data into information. So the performance scorecard is designed to separate data and have clear clarity around whether the organization is being successful. So at the what level, We had a discussion around this back several months ago when we presented a very rough draft to the board and took some of your feedback. The mission of the organization, why we exist, that's the mission statement, why we exist. HART is here to take people to the places that enhance their lives. The vision statement, the place that we strive to be, the place we're not yet, but our aspiration is for HART to invite, inspires, and implements sustainable and innovative transportation. That goes back to the teeter-totter that I shared, right? Making sure we're doing this in a financially sustainable, measurable way to the taxpayer, at the same time ensuring that the customer is having a quality experience. And that requires making decisions throughout so that it is sustainable and the customer is seeing a positive experience at the same time. I talked about outcomes at the what level, which the board adopts, that clarity of what success looks like. I always liken this to the fact that we're able to watch on a Sunday afternoon 300-pound grown men hug one another because they hauled a piece of leather across a chalk line. It's because of the clarity of what success looks like. They know where the end zone is. This is what our end zone looks like. So there's 5 core elements here. The first is to make the system more productive and a route productivity index that we've constructed. There's 3 measurements that go into the route productivity index, but it's the clarity to make the system be more productive. Second core element of success is at the end of the year, $3 million will be allocated to fund balance. It will not surprise you that the report you're about to see from Mr. Seward ties to that, right? It's the budget that you're going to consider ties to those definitions of outcomes. It's not simply good enough to be more productive and to produce value to the taxpayer. Customers actually have to enjoy the experience. So you'll recall the presentations that we've given you on Net Promoter Score on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would you recommend the service to another, that the customers would rate that as a 30. I will point out that is 2.5 times national average. You are already scoring at those levels. So the customer is enjoying a positive experience, making sure the taxpayer does as well. Fourth core element, ensuring that the community sees value. So the HART management team, as part of one of their tactics in the work plan, is going to be putting in place a community measurement device to see, is the community seeing value? And then finally, the 5th definition of success is ensuring that the employees have an engagement level of 65%. Some may push back on that. We've not measured this before, so we're starting there as really a starting point. We're going to learn throughout the course of the year, should we be steeper or should we adjust that, but we think as a starting point, that's a good place for us to be. So 5 very clear outcomes at the board level that you're able to measure. Is the organization performing in the way that it desires? Those are at the what level. Those are at the board level. Turning to the how do we go about causing that to occur? That's where the management team really needs to step up and come to you all with a plan and a budget and a performance measurement system that says this is how we're going to go about making that happen. So we have 5 areas of focus, 1 regarding service productivity, which should not surprise you, 1 regarding sustainable financial performance, tied to the outcome which we have in place, 1 regarding excellence in customer experience, a community connection. You'll recall we have a measurement of community sentiment as an outcome. And then finally, employee success. So 5 key areas of focus and 14 work activities. So clear areas that the management team will focus during the course of the year to be successful. I'm not going to take us through each one of these. I'm going to share this one simply as a template so you've got the ability to see the concept. This begins to move into the who activity. So this is 1 work activity. It happens to be around service productivity. You'll see how it aligns with the outcome at the top. There is a description of what will be done. This is the effort we put forth, but it's important we have the ability to measure the effort with a result. Right? So simply engaging in the work activity is the effort we're going to engage, but we have to be able to measure that as to whether or not the effort worked. And at the bottom of the sheet, you'll be able to see each quarter the milestones that the management team is responsible for. This is the stake in the ground that they're putting. This is where we'll have this project during the course of the year. So for each of the 14 work activities, I'm not going to flip us through each one, each of the 14 work activities, there is a corresponding description of each. So no longer do people have to wonder what they should work on each day. It's in the plan. They simply have to turn to the page and they're able to implement that. So in the service productivity area, one of the strategic areas of focus, there are 3 work activities which you can see in front of you. In regards to financial performance, there are another 3, all driven back to achieve that outcome in the financial area of allowing us to put $3 million into fund to balance. That's the outcome, right? And this is the work activity which will cause that to happen. So making sure we're working in the right spaces in a focused way to deliver the outcome as it's been defined. Excellence in customer experience, 3 areas of focus here. One of them that you'll see at the bottom is rather than relying upon episodic experiences of customers, making sure that there is a quarterly measurement system in place to measure through the Net Promoter Score, what does the broader base of our customer base actually think? So rather than responding to the 4s and the 5s and the 10s of people we may hear from, making sure we're hearing from 525 customers every quarter, are we in place in delivering a quality experience to people? In the community connection area, one of the things that you'll see here is our standing up a methodology to both measure and communicate community value. That's one of the outcomes, right? So we have to stand up a new system to be able to cause that to occur. And then finally, in the area of employee success, 3 work tactics here. You'll recall the outcome, we're trying to get to 65% of employees indicating that they're engaged in their work. 3 work activities here in this particular space, all with the same worksheet that I shared at the beginning, all with that same clarity of the outcomes. What does success look like? How do we go about making that happen? And then who is responsible for it? So for the last section, let me take you to the performance scorecard where the board will be seeing on a quarterly basis, how is the management team performing compared to delivering the outcomes which the board established. It's one thing to adopt the outcomes, it's another to make sure on a quarterly basis you can see, is the management team delivering success as it's been defined? So on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see in a very simplified fashion on a 100-point scale, related back to these 5 strategic areas of focus, a prioritized performance scorecard with prioritized metrics. So instead of coming to you with 40 metrics every month, and there's no ability to pick out which one's the most important and which one's the least important, the scorecard on the right tells you that. It says, get these 5 things right, perform well in these 5 areas, and that's going to allow us to deliver the outcomes that are most important to the board, most important to the community. Those are the output metrics that we're looking for. At the department level, there is a series of inputs, right? So being on time drives customer satisfaction. At the board level, we care about customer satisfaction. At the operations level, they're focused on vehicle cleanliness and on-time performance and driver attitude, making sure that the outcomes are clear for the board and the inputs are in place. For each of the metrics, we're making sure that we're measuring the right things to be aligned with the organization, not just measuring effort, not just measuring data, but making sure it's aligned to the outcomes. Second component, measuring, as I said, in a prioritized fashion, those metrics that matter most. The third, establishing ownership. Rather than people pointing at one another as who's responsible, there is clarity over every metric, who owns the result of that. The fourth, it's clearly defined. So for every metric that's in the scorecard, it's clearly defined exactly what it means. And then fifth, there needs to be an information system. We need to have an information system which will populate it. So for customer satisfaction, it's the Net Promoter Score, right? So for realizing our $3 million in fund balance, it's the P&L statement, which Mr. Seward reports. So there's an information system which reports and tells us in this consolidated fashion on a quarterly basis, is the management team on track to be able to deliver success as we have defined it? Last, Mr. Chairman, let me just share with you the schedule which ties back particularly to the what, mission, vision, outcomes that are really in front of the board, and making sure that you have an appreciation for the how, the work activities that the board will be engaged in. In August, in front of the Legislative and Strategic Planning Committee will be consideration of those outcomes, the mission, vision, and the outcomes. And then in September, at your board meeting, this draft plan, which I'm sharing for your review and questions today, will be in front of you for consideration. It's for good reason that this plan is tied to your budget, because the budget funds the work activities which will allow you to deliver upon the outcomes. So it's really adopting that comprehensive plan all at one time. I threw a lot of information at you quickly, Mr. Chairman. Be happy to pause and take questions.
Are there any questions? Ms. Shanahan, you recognize.
Thanks for the update.
Turn your mic on. Turn your mic on. Push the little button there.
Sorry, I'm not a regular here.
Neither am I.
I think you are much more than me, Chairman. First of all, this is exciting to see some of the organizational management opportunities, I think both for the HART as well as the employees as well as the community, where they have very defined levels of engagement. I'm just curious on the 65% for employee engagement, how is that measured? And that seems low to me.
So it's a good question that you ask, and I shared quickly in the presentation that at this point it's based on really two factors. We provide this service to a number of other transit agencies of similar size, and based on historic baselines, that's a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
The second answer to the question is we don't have an information system in place for it, so it's a little bit of a guess.
Mm-hmm.
It may be low, it may be high. We just don't know yet. We think it's a good place to get started. And the first question which you asked is how do we measure it? We have a process that we follow, which is a 10-question component. 3 of the questions within the 10 go into a composite roll-up score. The employees don't know which 3. And so we take the 3 questions which we know are going to roll in. That rolls up to 1 score, and that tells you whether you're going to hit it or not. We may come back to you in a year and say, that is too low. Science tells us that. At this point, we think that's a reasonable start.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Attorney General Counsel, Mr. Smith, do you have some comments, sir?
Yes, sir. Much of what you just heard is operational, but there are 2 aspects of it that are in your policy manual itself. That would be your mission statement and your vision. There's also a procedure for how you amend your policy manual, and the amendment process must be initiated by this board pursuant to a motion and approval. So what I'm going to need to do is ask this board if they want to move forward with the amendment to the mission and vision statement, to have a motion to direct council to prepare those provisions and bring them back to this board at its next meeting.
Okay, members, what's your pleasure?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Shanahan, second by a number of folks. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move back to our public input on agenda items. Each person will have 3 minutes to address this board on agenda items only. Please, when you come forth, please state your name and your address. I have a list here of some people that have signed up. I know there's more to come. Remember, you have 3 minutes. Do we have a timer down there? Is there a timer? You have it? Okay. Make sure we hear it. Yes, please state your name and address. The first person is Miranda Kilby. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Miranda Kilby, 11902 Rose Harbor Drive, apartment 113. I asked the board to not approve the proposals that are coming up. They're not only going to be taken away from my lives, but many people within our community. HART's mission statement is that they're driven to serve and that they'll take us there. With the changes that are being proposed, a lot of people's services will be cut, and then we won't be able to get to point A to point B without different transportations coming into play. A lot of the people that ride either the fixed routes or paratransit are on a fixed income as well. So doing this will not only hurt myself, but many people in our community. I ask that each of one of you, before you take your vote, to ask if you were in this position, if you were disabled, elderly, or just poor, how would you get to point A and point B? If you didn't have a car and you relied only on transportation, if you left your house, how would you get to work? How would you get to a doctor's office? How would you get your groceries? How would you get your medicines? And so on. Taking the bus routes away is going to limit everyone's independence. So I ask you, please, and I encourage you, please, not to vote on these proposals.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Cheryl Brown, and I'm going to ask Steve Jarrett to get ready to follow her.
Thank you, Cheryl Brown. I'm the Executive Director of Tampa Lighthouse for the Blind, 1106 West Platte Street. And I want to start off by thanking you all after the public hearing last week for reconsidering 19, which serves the Lighthouse for the Blind and also Division of Blind Services and the hospital. So thank you for reconsidering that. But I can only echo what Miranda just said. Just this morning, I got a call of somebody that moved from Lutz Lake Fern to Ballast Point off of McDill, and they called before they moved, and they said it was on a bus route because their son just graduated and needs to get to work. And now that they signed the contract, they've heard that they're not going to be serviced. So anytime you cut service, it affects somebody's job or somebody's independence, ability to get, like she said, to the doctor, whatever. So please, I know it's tough times, but please consider limiting the cuts as little, if not non-existent. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Jarrett, followed by Marion Grisdala. Remember to state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Steve Jarrett, 3006 Sprawling Oaks, Valrico, Florida. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the people that ride the bus to MacDill Air Force Base on the express routes 24X and 25LX. The proposal on the table in front of you today is to reduce our service by approximately 40%. Right now we have 16 routes going from Brandon to either downtown or MacDill, and they're wanting to combine the express routes of downtown into the MacDill route, causing the MacDill buses to stop in downtown. This adds extra time to our routes, as well as on the way home it's going to add probably 15 to 20 minutes to our routes. So it's a bad idea in our opinion to stop downtown. It's also a force protection issue because people can get on that bus and then turn around and get to the gate at MacDill from downtown. Right now we've got people that get on the bus that are MacDill riders only from Fishhawk and from Brandon. The other aspect of this is the people riding downtown would have to get to here early in the morning because our buses start at around 5:30 in the morning, and they run until about 6:30 in the morning. So there's nobody in downtown coming to work at that time of day. At MacDill, we come to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. Coming home, we leave at 3:15, and then various routes after that around 4:15 to 5:30 is our last bus. So with this proposed change, they're going to take our 6 routes that we have right now going to Fishhawk, or from Fishhawk to MacDill, and the 5 routes going from Brandon to MacDill, and they're going to reduce them each to 3 routes and consolidate them with the 2 express routes that I don't know how well those express routes are doing, but timing-wise, it's not going to work. It's going to give us probably 1 bus in the morning to go to MacDill and 2 buses in the mid-morning time frame to go to downtown and then to MacDill, which is too late for the MacDill riders. So that first bus is going to be overcrowded like it was back when the gas was over $3 a gallon. Our routes are very stabilized, are very well used, and we all appreciate having those routes and having the opportunity to have those 24X and 25LX. So I will ask the board to vote against any proposed changes to those 2 routes. Thank you.
Thank you. The next is Marion Gwisdala, followed by Ray of Sunshine Empowerment Services.
Marion, you passed it.
You looking for the other one?
You're fine right there.
There we go. Okay. Thank you very much. So my name is Marion Gwisdala. I reside at 1003 Papaya Drive in Tampa. And first of all, I want to compliment the creative writers who have written this plan and call it maximizing and aligning for excellence. Don't know which of those words are really true. We're having a difficult time understanding this. We define success in many ways, but one definition of success is also a progressive movement towards a desired goal. When those of us who rely upon public transportation, and I mean rely upon it, use the public transportation, who have no other options. We can't drive to a park and ride and catch an express, or if we miss the bus or it's raining, we can jump in our car and take a car to work or to the doctor's office or wherever we need to go. Wherever you're going, HART takes you there. That's also an interesting piece of creative writing, because we don't find that that's true. So one of the questions that we have been asking and have not gotten an answer to, still have not gotten an answer to, is how many people who use paratransit are no longer going to be served by paratransit as a result of these cuts? We asked that question of Marco Sandusky on July 22nd. He said, we don't know. We pressed him a little bit further, and he said, oh, it's a very small number. Now, if you don't know, how can you say it's a small number? We don't know the answer to that question. We've asked that question several times. We still don't know the answer. When you hear from Cheryl Brown, who has a lot of contact with people who rely upon public transportation, because those of us who are blind do use public transportation nearly exclusively for our transportation services. And we make choices about where we live and where we work based upon how are we going to get there and how effective and efficiently are we going to be able to do it. And within a year of, say, moving into an apartment and signing a lease, the transportation is cut. It's not efficient. It's not effective. I do want to say that we're told there are going to be some changes based upon our input, and they're going to have a meeting with us next week. But here's one of the things I also find is that they have meetings with us, and after the meeting is done, it seems as if nothing happens. They placate us. We are placated. I won't say they. We are placated by the meetings, and once the meeting is over, our concerns are forgotten about. We hope that's not true, but unfortunately, that is the kind of experiences we have had. So they're talking now about the possibility of maintaining the Brandon Flex. We hope that's true. We hope they do meet with us and that we can help them to restructure that and make good transportation that those of us who need it, rely upon it, can use. Thank you very much.
Ray of Sunshine Empowerment Services.
Oh, here. Go back. Yeah, there. We're saying hello. Or find the crown. Hi. I am the sole proprietor of Ray of Sunshine Empowerment Services, located at 710 Oakfield Drive, Suite 210, Brandon, Florida 33511. I signed a lease, a 3-year lease, a year ago. And I am a contractor for the state of Florida, vocational rehabilitation, and hopefully after August 18th, when I present to Division of Blind Services, will also be a contractor for Division of Blind Services. I am a provider for TRICARE, who provides services to veterans, military people, and their families. I'm a Medicare provider, I'm a Medicaid provider, and I'm a WellCare provider as well as Cigna. When I fill out these applications to become an insurance provider and as a private practitioner, one question that is asked of me is, are you on a bus route? If you cut the corridor on Oakfield Drive between Lakewood and Kings Avenue, my clients and the other people that come to 710 Oakfield Drive will not have an accessible bus route to this area. If the Brandon Flex changes, I have a viable solution for that route to serve that area, and I am in hopes that the board will encourage the management of HART to listen and take heed to the things that we suggest, because we ride this system daily, we use this system, we know who else rides the system because they ride alongside of us. Brandon does not need any services cut. And I invite Commissioner White, if you would like to come to my office building, I'll show you around, I'll show you how we get to places, and I'll be more than happy to spend time with you, and if you're allowed to, buy you lunch. But I would like someone from the board to come out and see our reality, see what we live every day. I'm a business owner trying to provide a service to individuals who are either dealing with life's tragedies, sorrows, having an adjustment period, or mental health issues. And I encourage you, please
don't cut the flex, or the services in Brandon. I sent you a letter on Saturday. I know you haven't received it yet. I also sent you one on Friday. But I want you to know this: private contracting doesn't work. There are 2 people in this audience right now who has been denied services because of the use of a service animal with yellow cab. This has not been resolved yet. We cannot get things resolved when we have a problem using yellow cab through the paratransit service. We cannot call customer service. We have to call yellow cab.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
3 minutes
you.
are up. Thank you. Nico Gary. Nico Gary. Oh, sorry.
Straight ahead. Reach out. Here we go. Yes. That's it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Nico Gary. Address is 1012 North Boulevard, apartment 210. I just want to say I agree with Miranda and Cheryl that if you cut the buses, it will be hard for us to do what we have to do. Just like I need the bus 7 to go to Winn-Dixie Plaza on Tampa Bay Boulevard and Armenia. And if you detour that bus there, I will not be able to go grocery shopping. So please, please do not make any changes. And I want to, just say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay.
Janice Butler. And the next speaker after Ms. Butler will be Cheryl O'Brien. Good morning, Ms. Butler.
Good morning. My name is Janice, Janice Butler. I live at 7129 Fairview Park Drive, Tampa, Florida, 33619. First of all, I'd like to say thank you. We heard this morning that the Brandon Flex is not going to be cut for at least 6 months, and we appreciate that. Now, my problem is I get the 37 from going eastbound, and I get the 37 going to Brandon. And sometimes I get off, I go to the gym at the First Baptist Church, and then I come down, and sometimes I go to Walgreens on the corner of Parsons and Highway 60, and then from there I go to Burger King, I get the bus, and sometimes I get the bus and I get off at Kmart, I get off at Regency Square, I go to the Dollar Tree, I go to another number of places. My doctors are in Brandon, and they're all past Providence. They're all past there and down into Brandon. And I can do this if I take HART Plus to the gym. It costs me $4 and then another $2 for the regular bus to get home. And the reason I do that is to save money. Because I don't have a lot of money, I'm on a fixed income. So that helps me. And it keeps me out there, and it keeps me feeling like I'm still independent to a certain degree, and I don't always have to use HART Plus. So I go a number of places. Like I said, my doctor's office is there. I go to the pharmacy there. I go to the LabCorp, everywhere, eye doctors everywhere, and they're all in Brandon. So I would encourage you to leave the 37 the way it is, because it's always busy. It's always standing room only, even in the middle of the day sometimes. And I try and get out of Brandon by 4 o'clock. or it takes you twice as long to get home. And then, you know, the workers, I try to be considerate of them too. And I know you're not going to go past the post office and past several of those doctor's offices, buildings, and the rehab center. There's a rehab center. I know a lady that's worked there over 20 years. We've become bus buddies. And she's not going to be able to get to her job. And that upsets me. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Butler.
And have a great day.
Cheryl O'Brien, followed by Jerry Morris.
You stepped on the shepherd. He's a big boy.
Come.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Cheryl O'Brien. I live at 10606 Ilex Street in Tampa. Thank you for this opportunity. But when we moved to Tampa many years ago with two very young children, one of the most important considerations that we had in purchasing our house was making sure that we lived on a convenient bus route. My husband and I still reside in the same house, and we still rely on the bus Route 36, and I'm pleased that this route will continue to run north of Dale Mabry up to Mission Bell. But I kept trying to find out what changes might occur to the Route 36 since I couldn't see and thus I couldn't access your interactive map. I tried calling HART about it, but didn't receive a reply. So I'd like to propose that we work together, the blind community and HART, to make sure that your important documents, your communications are accessible to all blind bus riders, and that would include your website and any documents that you might send out. I want to add that I have taken advantage of the yellow cab, and I'm pleased about that, but too often I find that I'm being held hostage by cab drivers who either don't want to take a short distance fare or do not want a service animal in their cab. So please, we need to continue, HART needs to continue to work on that so that we can continue to enjoy the yellow cab, because it is a great system, but that'll all break down if we can only take the cab for 10 miles because the bus driver doesn't want to take us to 2 miles. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Jerry Morris.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Morris. I reside at 9317 Allenbrook Street, Temple Terrace. I really wasn't made aware of any changes until someone gave me a call on Saturday. So I became aware. I decided I better do something. So if you remove the service in the Temple Terrace area, then myself and other people will have no way of getting to our doctors, grocery stores, drugstores, whatever. Prior to June the 30th, June the 3rd, my sister passed away. She would come over once in a while and take me where I need to go. But now I'm 100% reliant upon HART Plus and in a lesser degree, the cab companies. So please, if you find it in your heart to help the people who need the HART the most, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Robin Nosco.
Good morning. My name is Robin Nasco, and I reside at 8607 Poinsettia Drive in Temple Terrace. I'm here to speak about the elimination of the routes in and around Temple Terrace. I am the very proud mother of a 28-year-old daughter with intellectual and communication disorders who just celebrated her 8th year of employment at Publix in Temple Terrace. And if you haven't had the honor of being a parent of one of these wonderful individuals, this is a huge success. And her success depends on transportation to and from work, which is the HART Plus bus. Because of the HART Plus bus, it has enabled her to be a productive community member and to work for a living and pay her bills and just make her own way. It's also given her independence that she's never been able to have before. So I'm just here to ask on her behalf and on behalf of all the people who use these services, please don't eliminate the routes. They're so needed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Michael Borders. Mr. Borders will be followed by Azella Gonzalez.
Yes, my name is Michael Borders. I live at 7325 Filbert Lane, Tampa, Florida, East Temple Terrace. Please don't take my HART Plus ban away from me. If you do, I'll literally die. You'll have that on your hands. I don't have any friends. I don't have any family. I don't have any way to get food. HART Plus takes me to get to the store, to wherever I need to go. You take that away from me, I'll die. Simple as that. And you don't want that on your hands, do you? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Azella Gonzalez. Azella Gonzalez. Is there an Azella Gonzalez here? Okay. Lenora Stark.
Good morning. My name is Lenora Stark. I live at 11810 Sophia Drive in Nantucket Bay Apartments. That's at Morris Bridge Road and Fowler. And I volunteer at the VA hospital from 1 to 3 days a week. The only way I have to get there is by the HART Plus, and on Sundays I go in the yellow cab, since we have that privilege. This is my 13th year volunteering. It's the most important thing that I have left in my life to do. And if you cut the 57, you not only cut me, we have the mobile home park across the highway, we have a student housing complex there, we have Fisherman's Landing, there's veterans that live where I live. If you cut the 57, these veterans have no way to get to the VA for their appointments. And, well, I have no way to get out. I can't go grocery shopping just like everyone else. I'm in a 55-plus community. And we're not the only 55-plus community that's going to be affected by these cuts. And that number 18 is the only other one that goes to the VA hospital, so that's cutting our veterans from having transportation. Anyway, I pray that you don't. And because we do need that number 57, we have no other way to get out. And then there's other senior communities in the same condition with your plans to cut these routes. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Jackson. Should be followed by Bill Harlow.
Synergy between what the county does and how we operate. I mean, there's no connectivity.
Good morning. My name is Donna Jackson. I live at 4517 Tuscany Glen Circle at the Fountains of Falkenberg Apartments Senior Community. This is my first time at a board meeting, and so I heard something about the number 8, which is the only bus route closest to me. It takes about 15 minutes now to get to the bus stop. I heard it was going to be rerouted from 78th Street. I usually catch the bus at South 78th Street and Camden Field Parkway. Several senior citizens in my complex use that route. If you move it, I don't know where you would move it to. I wish that the bus would come down South Falkenberg Road to Progress Boulevard. That would be closer to us. I'm also a HART Plus rider. I do want to say right now that I appreciate the service. I'm from New York, and I'm used to buses running 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. But I have learned to adjust to the Heartline bus schedules. But I do ask that if that bus stop is going to be removed, if it is going to be removed, where would it be placed? And like I said, it takes 15 minutes on a good day for me to walk it, and in the heat and in the bad weather, it takes longer. So I just want to put that out to you, and thank you for the opportunity of your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Bill Harlow, followed by it's either Janelle or Wanell Harlow.
Good morning. I'm here on behalf of my daughter, Rachel, who is 28, born and raised here. But just to take an aside, I'm from Portland and Oregon, and of course they have a much different transportation system there. Those of you that are familiar with it, they've been working at it for a long, long time, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to move in that direction and that people will see a vision of the possibilities of having a transportation system that's more effective and efficient. But anyway, Rachel Lynn, we're on 57, and she's not able to actually take the bus because of her significant disabilities, but she needs to go to her adult daycare every day, and she uses the paratransit and has for some time now, a regular scheduled user. And I just wanted to encourage HART to continue thinking out of the box like they did with the yellow cab, and how they were able to come up with an alternative that surprised me but seems to have worked out very well. And I just want to encourage the management there to, you know, keep thinking about how we can be more efficient and serve the people with a limited budget. Changes are always happening, but anyway, continue the good job and continue working to serve people like my daughter, Rachel.
Thank you, sir. This Janelle or Wanell Harlow, followed by Steve Nunez.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, thank you so much. Your drivers are fantastic. They really enjoy the disabled helping people. I was 40 before I went to law school, became a lawyer. I don't think I would have done it had I known I would turn blind shortly thereafter. But HART Plus has been such a blessing. And when you have to lose your driver's license because you can't see at the, you know, I tried renewing it every way to keep my driver's license just for the independence. But when you lose that, it is staggering. And this room is full of people who are not blessed as you are and can jump in the car and go get something and, you know, oh, well, hey, it's okay, go ahead, leave me alone, I'll jump in my car and go do something else. It's a total different world. And Americans with Disabilities Act, why did that come in place? Because disabilities means so much different to able-bodied people who are so used to working, you know, doing what you do, the independence, and to change, to try to find it. It's not just the blindness. You can't walk down the street. I don't have sidewalks on my street. I'm sorry, I was supposed to give you my address, 9012 Copeland Road, Tampa, Florida. But we're on Route 57. I have a friend, she's blind, Lynn Hunn, and her husband, Tristan Hunn, he's blind also, and they have a good dog. But they can't walk down the street. There's no sidewalks where they are. They're on Route 19. They have to have some way to do it. I'm asking you, how many people use the HART Plus in the areas you're trying to cut? Is there some way that you can bring the budget in to where the HART Plus can remain, the yellow cabs can remain, because there is so much use of this without the bus line? Is there some way to mingle it somehow to where you are getting money from your budget for the HART Plus users? Just a question. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Steve Nunes, followed by Linda Cummings.
Yes, I live 3 miles out from where y'all picked me up at. This was 8775 Temple Terrace Highway, and I take that Heartline Plus to go back and forth to McDill. I've been at my job at GCE for 16 and a half years. I cannot ride the regular bus because of my back. I had a bad car accident in 2013. It limits me to my bending over, so I'm light duty at McDill Air Force Base. And if you take 57 away, I would have to travel further to somewhere else to take the bus. I've already traveled 3.5 miles from Tenotassasset to Temple Terrace to take the bus in the morning. So if I have to travel to Net Park in the morning to get the other bus. So if you would please leave the routes the way they are, I'd appreciate it. And I thank you for letting me talk to y'all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nunes. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Cummings, followed by Beverly Backey.
Thank you. Good morning, board. My name is Linda Cummins. Before I retired, I went in front of the board several times. I was instrumental in getting the buses running early and late. Before the buses started running early and late, it was just the number 2 bus. And many people in this town work for food service, in the medical field, or overnight cleaning. I do wish to commend HART so much, and I want them to know that we are so grateful for customer service, the senior drivers. I cannot say enough about the drivers, and HART Plus. I really wish you would pass that on. My concern is Raymond James Stadium. I worked there before I retired. Raymond James Stadium would go back and forth with us getting with HART as far as the location for the workers that came to them. The buses would be rerouted by the Women's Center in Tampa. And then those workers who worked for food service and worked for cleaning would have to walk that mile. When you got to Raymond James Stadiums, then you had to walk so much. So my suggestion is, and maybe it's already put out there, that Raymond James Stadium, a $1 billion company, purchase a center for the community, not from the taxpayers, not from HART, not from anybody else, but Raymond James Stadium, which is a $1 million company. Purchase that location so that the people in this town will continue to be able to take transit areas in the systems, in the areas that they need to go. I do know that big corporations, from working for food services, because I used to serve the food for corporations that donated monies to Metropolitan Ministries and other companies like that, that they donated money for the community, and Raymond James Stadium purchased West Tampa Mall, and so they are responsible for giving back to the community. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am. Beverly Backey, followed by Bernard Romano.
Good morning, board. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Beverly Backey. I reside at 14702 North Livingston in the Lansdowne Terrace apartments with 55 and over. There's so many things I wanted to talk about, and seem like the public has covered a lot of it. I hope you all take in consideration if they're disabled, a veteran, the poor working person, cutting out the transportation. How can they go to work and get on their feet? I don't want to complain. You got something really good going on here in Hillsborough County, but I'm asking you, step back and take another look. Rework this. HART Plus is the best kept secret in Tampa. It has spoiled us in some ways because we have this readily available personal touch in transportation that people receive daily. Some people don't get to see and communicate with a lot of people, but when they get on that HART Plus van, there's a connection. They're sweet and nice and kind and courteous, and they try to do the best they can, but they have them running all over town from North Del Mary and the Temple Terrace and Brandon all at the same time. You need to work that one, because the drivers really want to work for you. They really, really do. And I could go on and on and on and talk about the different people that need all your services that you provide. You got some good stuff, but it needs to be looked at again and reworked to perfect it. He said success, public connection, community satisfaction, all of those things. You're trying to create that atmosphere with your working and everything that you're doing. But take another look. I know you're geniuses. If you wouldn't, you would be up there representing and taking care of us. And now we're asking again. Anybody in the audience that's disabled, raise your hand. Anybody that's just lonely and need a transportation to get out and do some shopping, raise your hand. If you're hardworking and don't have a car, raise your hand. If you're a veteran, raise your hand. And I want you all to look around in that audience at all those people that raise their hand. How can you tell them that you're going to put them on their feet and set them on their sit-downs? I won't say the word, but I'm trying to give everything a perspective so you'll hear everything. We need you, and we need HART Plus. I live on Route 18. There is nothing. I live in Lutz. There is nothing if we lose our 18. I don't know if the bell's ringing or not. I hear bells, but I just want you to take listen to one more thing, and I'm gone. Just look at the people and tell them, no, I can't serve you anymore. You placed me here to serve you, but I can't serve you anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Remember, boy, she called you geniuses, okay? Bernard Romano, followed by Thomas Watson.
Good morning. My name is Bernard Romano. I live at 11840 Sophia Drive, Temple Terrace. I was at your last board meeting, and I represent the seniors at Nantucket Bay Apartments, the Lamplighter community, and also the city of Temple Terrace. I mentioned at the last time I spoke that our city manager, Charles Stevenson, was unaware of all these changes. And I'd like to ask Sherry Donahue, who's one of your board members, but she's also a Temple Terrace council member, why she did not mention these changes to our city manager. I hope you took into consideration everyone who spoke at the last meeting to not eliminate some of these very important bus routes. And I would also hope that you at least considered the alternate plan I mentioned about a limited schedule for the 57 and the HART Plus buses, 6 to 9 a.m. and 3 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And one last mention to Kimberly Jimenez Green. The city manager and the public works manager would like to thank her for getting our 32-gallon decorative garbage bins back at the city buses. And I just want to thank you for giving me this time to speak.
Thank you, sir. Thomas Watson, followed by Megan Watson. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Thomas Watson. I reside at 802, I'm a little nervous, 802 Lamont Place, Temple Terrace, Florida. Hold on.
Stop the clock, please.
Sorry.
Okay.
802 Lamont Place, Temple Terrace, Florida. When you remove 57, you will be removing my ability to get to and from work. Not only that, you'll be removing the ability for many other disabled individuals to get to and from dialysis, doctor's appointments, shopping, community service, all those. I'm here to ask you today to reconsider, because this is our livelihood, and we're already
Take your time, sir.
we already have enough on our plate. So again, please reconsider your considerations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Megan Watson. Good morning.
Morning. Hi, my name is Megan Watson. I live at 802 Mont Place. This is my dad. He is always working very hard. One of the reasons that we moved to the house that we currently live in is because of the route that we're on. When you cut that out, I'm a full-time university student, and I already have a lot on my plate, and my mom works full-time as well. There's just, the HART Plus line is so important to so many people, and just take a look around this room, all the dogs. My dad has been left by a yellow cab before because they saw the service animal and drove away. So it's just so important that he have the access that he needs, and it's you guys provide that for him. I'm also here to talk about, I'm a volunteer games manager for the Special Olympics here in Hillsborough County. A lot of my athletes, they take the HART Plus to practice on the 57 right behind King High School on Sly. They are also going to be affected, and they have so many disabilities, they can't walk very far. And our neighborhood, we don't have sidewalks, and my dad would have to walk almost 1.5 miles to get to the closest bus station in the dark at 5:30 in the morning with no sidewalks. That's just hazardous for people. So I hope that you hear everyone in this room and that you vote no, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Janet Zink, followed by Michael Apurero.
Janet Zink, 3821 West San Luis Street. I'm here speaking on behalf of Tampa International Airport. I want to start by saying it's just heartbreaking to hear all of these stories, and it is a shame that HART does not have the funding that it needs to expand service and continue to help all of these people and everybody else who needs good transit in Hillsborough County. That said, there are a couple of bright spots. One of the things that you guys are doing in making this really difficult decision about reconfiguring your program is increasing some service to the West Shore Business District and Tampa International Airport. At the airport, we employ 7,500 people at the airport and its tenants, and the West Shore Business District has more than 100,000 people working and living there, and they need access. Those people who live and work there need access. So my understanding is that this reconfiguring includes some increased access from Brandon and East Tampa and potentially USF eventually. And the other thing that you all are doing is one leg of the route from Brandon is an express service between downtown and the airport. So it's got really limited stops, and it'll make it a lot easier to get to the West Shore Business District as well as the airport. Thank you very much. And I don't envy you guys this decision.
Thank you. Michael Acapulco, followed by Stephen Kruger.
Good morning. My name is Michael Abiwero. My address is 1338 Foxborough Drive, Brandon. And I'm here this morning to explain. Okay. Yeah, I'm here to explain that it would really be difficult for me to go to to go from point A to point B, just like everybody else has said. And I would really like you if you can allow 37 and Brandon Flex to run, because I think those are the two routes that enable me to go anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can someone assist him back to his seat, please? Stephen Kruger, followed by, and I can't make out the first name, but the last name is Cooper from, I think it looks like Apollo Beach. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Steve. Excuse me. Good morning, Steve Kruger, 3009 West Chapin Ave. Like you've heard already, we too selected where we lived based on services that were provided. I'm here to represent my 30-year-old son who is disabled. He cannot take a bus. He rides HART Plus. It's hard enough for a disabled 30-year-old to find an employer who will hire him. He was able to find a job, and HART Plus has been a godsend for him. We do not mind the long windows and some of the difficulties and the time he spends on HART Plus, because it's still a blessing what HART Plus has been able to allow him to get out, to get to a job, to become a productive member of society, even though HART Plus, we don't care that HART Plus eats up most of the money that he makes. It's that important for him to get out there and be a productive member of society and socialize. We didn't know, and I still can't follow the website. We got a call Saturday. We didn't know what the changes were going to do until we got a call Saturday saying your son might be affected by the changes with HART Plus. I've called since, and I've gone on the website to try to figure out how one thing relates to the other, and I can't figure it out. I called somebody, and they're trying to help. The people have been nice, but if I've called and they've said, well, you can go to this hearing, which is why I'm here today, but the main answer I got was, well, they're going to vote on it, and you'll find out whether it affects you or not after they vote. And I said, well, it's going to be too late. How do I find out what's going on before the vote? And that's why I'm here today. But I'm just here like a lot of other people. HART Plus is a godsend. Again, my son cannot take a bus. It's been able to get him out. And it's a wonderful service. The people, the drivers have been fantastic. They help him all the time. So thanks to all of them. But again, I wish I knew which change was even affecting us, and I just can't tell. I think it's very confusing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you Cooper?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Cortland Cooper. I live in Apollo Beach on Apollo Beach Boulevard. I'm originally from the Apollo Beach, Gibbston area. I am very disappointed about the fact that they're wanting to eliminate the 47 and the 53 LX. First off, I'm going to start with the 47 LX. Fortunately, I work in Ruskin now, but I eventually want to get a job in Tampa because I'm not making enough money where I'm at. It is so much easier for me to take the 47 LX from Apollo Beach at the Winn-Dixie there. I am very, very upset, and so is somebody else that has been speaking out on all the meetings. Her name is Tammy, that rides the bus. Sandy Merman knows her. What was I going to say? I did not want them to cut off the 47 going to Apollo Beach at that Winn-Dixie. We need that more than anything in this town. I don't know how many of you have been to the Apollo Beach Ruskin area lately, but that area is growing rapidly from US 41 to Shell Point Road all the way down. That's taking one step backwards versus taking one step forward. I feel like it's and another thing is, you all did not advertise this route enough. I have been in this area, for the record, my whole life. I didn't know about this route till I was 21 years old, till I was going to New Tampa, taking the 51X, going to my mom's house. I found out about this route by accident. Half of this town doesn't know this route. There's probably like about 15,000, 20,000 people in this town, and they did not know about this route. You all don't advertise at the elementary schools. You don't advertise at the middle schools or the high schools, the libraries, parks, or anything like that where they should be advertising that route. And I do not want you all, I'm begging you all to please do not cut it from the Walmart Park and Ride in Gibson, or do not cut this route in the Winn-Dixie. I understand if you don't want to have this route go all the way to Ruskin or Waimama, but please, now to the 53LX. Are you all insane wanting to cut this route from from the St. Joe's, that new hospital that just opened up? How are people going to see their loved ones over at that hospital? I mean, there's other options you all could do. Let the 31 go down Big Bend Road to get to Summerfield. My doctor's office is in Summerfield. I mean, it's ridiculous that you all would. I mean, even South Bay Hospital in Sun City, they may not have a regular bus that goes there, but they at least have the Flex that stops there. I mean, and you know, I just feel like it's a horrible decision of what you all want to do. I'm very disappointed, but please do not cut out the 47LX.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Time's up. Thank you. Carlos Cabrera, followed by Kimberly Overman.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Some of you that personally know me, it's been 2 years. My name is Carlos Cabral. I live in 4217 East 99th Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33617. Mr. Chairman, it's an honor seeing you again.
See you also.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just speaking on behalf of the Route 39. I think it's unfair that it's going to be cut from every 30 minutes to every hour. Number one, there's a lot of people taking that route, and if you even see that route has so many people inside. You can't even sit down or have a chair, and number two, if you're going to go to Harney Road in the casino, what about putting some of the routes of the Route 57? You can at least merge it with some of the people at Morridge Bridge, some of the people that live on Davis Road. How many of you live on Davis Road? At least put the Route 39 on those routes. It's not fair for those people. Some of them have mental disabilities. I myself have a mental disability. They're going to have nowhere to go. And one more thing, I'm also going to speak on the Metro Rapid. If it's going to be every 10 minutes, at least serve it until at least midnight. Don't cut the Metro Rapid as well. The people who live in Nebraska needs that Metro Rapid. And that's all I have to say. Please do not, a lot of people will be affected by this bus change. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimberly Overman, followed by Henry, the letter S. That's all I have. Henry S. Oh, Henry. Okay.
Kimberly Overman, 4610 North Central Avenue. Thank you very much for hearing all the folks that are speaking on behalf of their ability to survive. You guys are in a very difficult position, but one of the things I want you to recognize is that your job is to advocate for the funding necessary to serve the public. Your public is really upset with you right now because their lives depend on their ability to support themselves and get where they need to go to stay alive and to feed themselves. I'm not hearing that we're actually fighting back on not having enough funding. I'm hearing that you're doing a marvelous job with what you have. The program we heard earlier is wonderful improvements in order to efficiently use taxpayers' monies. But at the end of the day, what I'm not hearing is that you're reaching out to business owners. The 10,000 employees out at West Shore Alliance have an opportunity by their employer to buy an annual pass to use public transportation if we were to encourage them to do so. That would generate revenues to avoid having to cut programs that we would actually need for those that have not that choice. I encourage you to find innovative ways to be able to not cut services. Comparable communities across the country, one of which many of our citizens visited, have twice the number of buses than we have for the number of people we serve. We have done a travesty of serving the people in this room because we have not funded what HART's mission is, which is to provide an opportunity for people to take care of themselves. We are failing in that respect, in some respects, and you are so successful in other respects of looking for ways to actually improve service, and I get that. But we cannot cut the benefits for those that have no choices in lieu of taking care of those that do. We have to recognize that we have to do a baseline, make sure we take care of those that have no choice, and look for ways to increase funding to those that are economically viable for our community. I love the fact that we're improving our service to our airport. I've been out of town a lot this month. I took the train from the airport to downtown Union Station in Denver and transferred to a commuter line. It took me about the same amount of time it would have taken a one-way drive to get to my son's apartment. And then I walked 2 blocks to his home. That's a transit system. We don't have that. We need to advocate for that. We need to find the funding for that. We need to go back to all of our funding sources and encourage them to support a transit system that allows these people to be successful in their lives. Thank you for your time.
Henry? We have one more person to speak. That's what I have right now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so we're gonna do something like this. I'm gonna help out my people who are in wheelchairs. But first of all, I would like to say hey to Carlos, and there's a couple of things that has to be done here, man. Route 2 and Metro Rapid, they share one road together. I don't know why. So if you do eliminate Route 2, please do that. Keep Metro Rapid, put it 10 minutes, run it down to 12 o'clock, maybe even 2 o'clock. There's people like to ride those buses. And if you do decide to, alter, don't take, alter. At least you can have Route 19 run from downtown to Britton Plaza, have a connector bus, from Britton Plaza, take them around. And add 275 from UATC to the airport, so that way people could get from the north to the south. And people who live up north, past UATC, they got the Hyperlink. Hyperlink will be changing their fare to $1 pretty soon. Pretty soon, they're gonna be changing their fare to $1. Reason why I'm close friends with one of the drivers from Hyperlink, and she actually told me that I was highly mentioned over at Hyperlink. Highly. Just like I'm highly mentioned over here at HART, I'm highly mentioned over there. And for Route 39, you can run it east to west. Don't take it down 56, because I heard you was giving that all to Route 6. From UATC to downtown. That Route 6, it'll make me better because I work at Publix, and I feel like I want to get on the bus at 10:30 and just go straight shot without having to go through USF. Man, USF takes a lot of time. Once upon a time there was a major backup at USF. It took 2 hours just for the Route 6 I was on to get through there. 2 hours. And now this is the biggest one for the people who are disabled in the wheelchairs throughout Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa. Mr. Suarez, Mr. Miller, this is what I want you to do. And I'm gonna ask for it, but I'm not gonna demand for it. I'm gonna ask for it, but I really want you guys to look over it. I want you, please. How many times can I say please? I can say please over and over again. But please, All right, so our city and our county is missing sidewalks. How can our wheelchairs, roll? How can my three-wheel hand cycle roll? I can roll fast on my three-wheel hand cycle, even though it's too big to get on the bus. But you know what? We're missing sidewalks. I could go down Bush Boulevard over there from between Armenia and Boulevard, and not see that the south side of the thing has the sidewalk.
Henry, your time is up, sir. Thank you. We appreciate it. Your time is up. The last speaker I have is this Hema Dantuluri. And that will be our last speaker for the morning on this issue. Look up your mic. I'll just call on you. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hema Dantuluri. I live at 3452 Marlins Pike Drive. I suddenly got a call on Saturday saying that there are going to be some changes to HART Plus that could affect my route. And I'm totally dependent on HART Plus. I have muscular dystrophy, and so I can't drive a car. I work, and my income supports 3 generations, my parents, my siblings, and my daughter. So I totally rely on HART Plus. I use it every day, like for all my shopping, or if I have to go to the doctor or pharmacy, and even to work. And I was trying to, I have been on and off jobs, and so I'm on a permanent job now, and I was trying to request to get on a scheduling, and I was told it's already reached the maximum capacity. So I use it a lot, and it gives me independence. I'm born in India, I have decided to settle in US because of the paratransit service. I got the opportunity to work and live in different cities in US, and the first thing I look for when I go to any city is try to look for the bus routes and take an apartment close to the bus stop, and then apply for the paratransit. And it's been a blessing, and I stay either with friends or roommates, but my family isn't here. So for me, paratransit is safety, because I know that the drivers are there are fixed number of people, and they are really vetted out by the government, and so I can take the shuttle anytime. And when I tell my mom that, okay, I'm going here and I'm using the paratransit, she sleeps peacefully because she knows her daughter is in a safe place, in safe hands. Because I can take cab, luckily I'm not into a very low income. I earn well, but then I want to be safe. But if I call a cab, I'm not sure who turns up and how would I reach a place. So I don't feel as confident and safe getting into so many unknown drivers' cars rather than go with HART Plus, because I have made friends of many drivers in the HART Plus here. They just call me by name and say, how am I doing? And we catch up where we left off the previous ride when I met them. So I want to feel safe, and it helps me spend money for other things, like have a maid at home and help me, because I need help in several other things, not only in commute. So I want to be able to live like everybody by being able to spend on different things and live safe and comfortably. So please don't take away my route. It really makes a difference to me and my whole family. So I would really request you all to please keep the service. And I greatly appreciate this service for the disabled.
Thank you very
so
much.
much.
Thank you. That was the last speaker we had on this issue this morning. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out, whether you spoke this morning or just here to observe, to take the time out of your schedule to come before us and let us know your feelings. So thank you so very much. I'm going to ask the board to waive the rules, that we take up the Mission Max overview and implementation at this point, and then come back to the overview of the proposed fiscal year 2018 budget. May I have a motion to do that?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second to waive the rules to take up the mission max overview and implementation. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. Ms. Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you have heard nothing this morning, you have heard that HART Transportation is a vital component of this community. We make life happen. It's something that you do hear us say at our board meetings. This is the reality. These are our patrons. These are the folks that we serve. It is our responsibility to be sustainable and to find a way that these folks and everyone looking at transit can sign a lease and take a job and not choose between where they live, being vested for retirement, and their children being in a good school. The top priority for us is that we have our sustainable network and sustainable transportation so folks can make their lives happen. That is our core, that is our mission. If you look at our proposed mission and vision statements, that's what we reiterate. We make life happen. We transport over 45,000 people a day. We also have over 800 employees. That's a lot of mortgages and rents that we are paying. We greatly appreciate the compliments for our staff today. The folks are out there. It is wonderful to hear from our patrons the quality of service that they enjoy. That's only possible with a sustainable organization where we can pay people a fair wage, where we have benefits which they can afford and which are useful for them. So overarching, a sustainable network isn't just getting folks from point A to point B. It's stable as an employer. It's stable as an entity that does business in our communities. Mission Max, the modernizing and aligning for excellence, is our step in that direction. Nationally, we have seen transit use change. We've seen our expenses go up. Not many transit teams are taking the deep dive that your team has taken this year. And a point to remember, this year also started with a zero-based budget. You will hear from Mr. Seward removing nearly $8 million in administrative costs to ensure we had the maximum amount of money to go out into service. We also commissioned a consultant that Mr. Sandusky is going to review the work to do a comprehensive analysis of our service. We did not give our consultants a price tag. We said, what is the most rational way to serve this community? They brought back a network that we then tweak. Respectfully, I take exception that we are not responsive. You've seen 150 people at our public hearing on July 26th. We had 40 meetings supporting this initiative. We've heard from over 1,000 people, and you see a detailed chart in your board packet where we are deeply responsive. Speaking to you as a transit professional and not just your CEO, the task of ensuring that folks have options has been Herculean. And there is no one in this country, especially not a mid-sized transit agency, that has been able to pull together the options that we have been able to do. Brandon Flex, we will encourage today a motion from the board to operate this service for at least another 6 months, so we can verify that what we think is a superior service, Hyperlink, is actually working for our patrons. It's cutting edge, it's innovative, and it can do better, and we will work with our patrons for this. Route 47, we heard mentioned today. There's a local route right under that bus that runs every hour throughout the week, throughout 5 days of the week. You heard comments today about our length of service. Starting with this proposal, all but one local route will run 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekends. You will not find this matching up in other cities of our size, especially with our funding. Temple Terrace will have service, and we will be looking at grandfathering not just Yellow Cab, but our HART Plus service to ensure our most vulnerable patrons are covered. Significantly, we are reducing on our footprint on our maintenance side for bus through attrition and on bus. We are not reducing on van. It is critical. This county is huge and challenging, and we are just catching our breath to continue to meet these obligations for our patrons here. So if you've got your van operator now, that van operator is saying we made a very strong focus on this. Mr. Guastalo raised a point. How many people will be impacted on paratransit? And he is right with the response. We don't know because we don't have a residency test to transport you. We provide paratransit based on your trip. Like the gentleman coming from Thanata Sasa, you're a brave soul, sir. We serve you when you are in our paratransit area and connect you. You still have a 3-mile trip, which is craziness. It's absolutely crazy that it's taking you 3 miles to get to service. Yes, sir. And we have our director of ops support in the back who's going to sit and talk to you and make sure that we have you covered. A 3-mile trip to say that we would lose him, we already think he's lost because he's outside our buffer. 3 to 5% of our paratransit origins and destinations would be impacted, and our staff is actively evaluating how to grandfather those services in under our federal obligations to make sure folks are still transported. Now, Mr. Sandusky is going to dig into the nuts and bolts of what is proposed on the 24 and 25, what is proposed on the 53 to be a 2-day-a-week shopper, to guarantee that no one is left behind. But let us reiterate, we are at a turning point to be a new, transformative, sustainable entity so these conversations don't happen again. And everyone here who is currently on transit will have excellent service 7 days a week. This is how we make it happen. I'll turn it over to Marco right now.
Good morning, Marco Sandusky, Director of Government and Community Relations. As Ms. Egan stated, Mission Max really is about rationalizing the transit network here in Hillsborough County. It's about incorporating input from the public, built on strong data analysis of where we are, where we live, and where we work, and what our commuting patterns are. And Mission Max helps set the foundation for us as a county to better meet current and future transit needs. So as you recall, in November of 2016, the HART engaged a consultant, Tyndall Oliver and Associates, to conduct a comprehensive operations analysis. The last COA, as we refer to it, was here at HART was conducted in 2003. Our community has changed in the last 13 years, and that's what we found through this analysis. There were opportunities to consolidate routes, opportunities to implement service that connects people more directly and provides quicker trips, and opportunities to reinvest some savings by consolidating into better frequency on the core network. And that's what our customers from the very beginning of this process asked for. They wanted to see more of a quality of transit service that we are capable of providing. But it is and has been a balancing act. So the key principles of the COA were to focus on improving existing rider travel times, improving the directness of travel, focusing on building more frequent service on core routes, and providing better and straighter regional connectivity. As you see in the map here, the COA resulted in a network that's more of a grid-like system. Big city transit is moving in the direction away from hub and spoke types of transit to a grid-based system that provides frequency and times travel, times connections in a way that improves the travel time for the customer. And so this more grid-like network helps keep us out of circuitous, confusing routes that go into and out of neighborhoods by providing more direct, quicker trips for our customers. As I said before, it also provides us an opportunity to reinvest in more frequent service on our core routes, the routes where there are the highest trip generators, where the most people are using transit, and where there's the most potential for additional transit use as well. So as you see, the initial COA proposed increasing the number of routes that run very frequently from 1 to 4, something that our customers in initial outreach of this process strongly favored. So Tyndall Oliver proposed the COA network, and it was very important for us at that point to move forward and test it with the public and ask the question, what do you think about this proposal? And so we had a very community-driven process where, as Ms. Egan said, we conducted over 40 meetings. We interacted with over 1,000 people. We interacted with people in lots of different ways. We did a number of radio interviews from WTMP to WMNF. Ms. Egan was on the radio station down in Sun City Center. Of course, we published ads in major newspapers. We did a lot of promotion through our website and social media, but we also posted flyers and information out at our transit centers and on our buses. We distributed paper information to some key ambassadors and community relations contacts. We did outreaches out at the transit center. We didn't only ask you to come to a public meeting, but we went to where our customers are, to the places where they're making those connections. We conducted 4 workshops where we had an opportunity to provide a real substantive presentation, a presentation that we Facebook Lived a couple of times and had great success in terms of the viewership and interest in that. In all, we interacted with an enormous number of people, and as you can see from this calendar, there were a lot of opportunities for the public to weigh in, and I think you've seen it today from the interest in today's meeting as well, that we've been out there talking to people about these proposals. And importantly, all of this outreach hasn't just been about accumulating a big number of contacts. It's been about making this proposal better. And so Ms. Egan's charged us in a very sincere way to go back and look at these proposals. And where the public has said, you know, this doesn't make sense, or is there an alternative, or this is my livelihood, is there something that we can reasonably and feasibly do to integrate that public input? But we can't only take input in one-offs. So as you see in your board packet in attachment 2, we looked at all of the comments we received. We analyzed them and looked at how they related to the proposal. So you see for each route proposal, you'll see the number of comments that we received that favored the proposal, the number of comments that opposed the proposal. And some of those proposals where we saw a large accumulation of comment and opposition, those rose to the top for us as major issues that we need to go back and look at our math. We need to get some more information and see if there were some workable alternatives. So as you also see in your board packet, there's an attachment 6 that identifies and is a discussion of some of the major themes and revisions that we have proposed as a result of going out and vetting this proposal with the public. And I'm going to cover those briefly here. One of the big areas of concern that we received was the service in the area north of Fletcher. So proposed modifications to the Route 1 and the Route 33 and the removal of Route 18 and Route 57 would have left the area north of Fletcher with the alternative of hyperlink as a way of connecting into the HART service. And as you know, hyperlink is intended to be a way to help connect our customers into a robust bus network. However, we received a lot of comment that hyperlink was an insufficient way to be able to connect riders into the network. And we went back and looked at the ridership and the potential there, and we realized that it did make sense for us to look at an alternative. And so what we've proposed as an alternative and a revision to the proposal is to take the Route 45 and split it at Yukon and create a new Route 42 that serves Yukon Transit Center up to the area north of Fletcher and travels on Nebraska, Skipper Bears, Bruce B. Downs, and 131st. So this provides connectivity. It provides an alternative in addition to hyperlink to be able to connect into the network from that area north of Fletcher. On the Metro Rapid route, where this is one of the areas where there's a real improvement for our customers. In this corridor, we've proposed to increase the frequency to the point where you walk up to a bus stop and you're going to have a bus coming without having to look at a schedule. You'll have a bus coming at least within the next 10 to 12 minutes. By consolidating the Route 2 with the Metro Rapid, very understandably, there are concerns about the number of stops. There are less stops on the Metro Rapid service than on the Route 2. However, we've proposed to add at least approximately 7 stops in each direction. And the way that we will identify the stops for the Metro Rapid in that Nebraska corridor is by identifying stops that have the highest number of boardings, looking at the infrastructure that's available there, looking in particularly at wheelchair boardings at those stops, so that we can ensure that nobody has an unreasonable walk to be able to get onto that service that runs from downtown up to the university area. We also, through the outreach period, identified an opportunity to modify the Route 33. And rather than have Metro Rapid continue to run from the university area over to Hidden River, we've identified an opportunity to take the Route 33 and create another cross-county route. So the Route 33, rather than Metro Rapid, will cover the area from UATC over to Hidden River. And Metro Rapid, keep in mind now, will run on the Route 2 schedule. So it will run from 5 a.m. to midnight. It'll run 7 days a week. That's a quality of service that our customers ask for, they deserve, and that we want to be able to deliver. On the Route 19, we received a lot of comment, and we've made a modification to ensure that the Route 19 will serve the Lighthouse for the Blind directly. We've also looked at the connections with Tampa General Hospital. The Route 19 will, based on the revision that we've made, it will serve Lighthouse for the Blind and Tampa General Hospital in the northbound direction, and it will travel on Cleveland instead of Swan in the southbound direction, which is a response to a number of comments that we received on the Route 19. On the Route 8, due to some unresolved safety issues, we've identified an opportunity here to improve the directness of travel on this route. So the route will stay on 78th Street and Progress Boulevard without making the deviation into the neighborhood. This will help provide connectivity and a quicker trip. But we've also committed, before we make this change, to make the necessary infrastructure improvements on 78th and Progress Boulevard to ensure that there's a safe path to be able to get to the bus stop, and that you've got a landing pad and a bus shelter at those locations. On the Route 39 and the elimination of the Route 57, we made a modification after the public input period to the Route 39 proposal. The initial proposal proposed to have the Route 39 provide alternating trips. One trip would go up Temple Terrace Highway and the other would go south on 56th Street. This would have reduced the quality of the service to that segment of 56 Sly Avenue, 50th Street, and Puritan. And so by removing the Temple Terrace leg, we're able to maintain the 30-minute frequency on that southern portion, provide a quality level of service on a segment of the route that has a lot of potential and stronger ridership. And then on the segment that's to the east there of 56th Street, and to address the coverage concerns around the Route 57, which we heard a lot of concerns about the elimination of the Route 57, we are working very diligently now to look at making a modification to the hyperlink service and putting a hyperlink zone in the Temple Terrace area that would provide connectivity right here in this area that we're talking about, where the Route 57 would be eliminated. So if we centered a hyperlink zone at Temple Terrace City Hall, this gives us a great opportunity to provide coverage in this area where the Route 57 provided coverage and where the Route 39 initially proposed to provide some coverage. And we intend to be able to roll that new hyperlink zone out along with the rollout of the rest of these Mission Max changes. On the Route 21 LX, which is another route where we heard a lot, in particular from folks in Temple Terrace who used the Route 21 LX to be able to make a quick connection into downtown, we found a creative solution here where we're taking the Route 51X, which travels from Wesley Chapel into downtown, and it will make a stop on the morning trips to Temple Terrace City Hall Park and Ride in order to provide connectivity from that park and ride on an express basis into downtown. On the Route 36, we found an opportunity here to make a modification. The initial proposal for the Route 36 proposed using Dale Mabry rather than Himes for the majority of the Route 36. Due to some opportunity in the near future to add infrastructure on Dale Mabry, we've made the decision and are recommending to keep the Route 36 on this portion of Himes so that in the future, after the appropriate infrastructure is put in place on Dale Mabry, and with the opportunity for some FDOT funding to do that, we will be able to make that change at the right time in order to provide a level of service through that Dale Mabry corridor that we expect to be able to. And then the other change that we made on the Route 36 helps to improve the connectivity with Hillsborough Community College. So the route will come down to MLK and then to Lois and Tampa Bay Boulevard. That also provides more connectivity and improved connectivity with the Route 7, which is something that we heard about in the outreach process. A number of other major themes and revisions that rose to the top in this outreach process. Express service from Brandon. So the Route 24X in the proposal will become a limited express, which means that the fare for the for that route, the 24X, will drop to the local fare from the express fare, which is a premium. And the modification for the 24X and the 25LX would be that both of those routes will come into downtown. They'll make just a couple stops in downtown before making their way to MacDill Air Force Base. Now, there are a couple reasons for proposing this change. One is, as you know, HART is partnering with THEA in the Connected Vehicles pilot project. And so with that project, we have a great opportunity to test some pretty cool and helpful technology to help improve the directness and quickness of travel in downtown. So what we're proposing for the 24 and the 25 is, as they come into downtown, those buses will be equipped with traffic signal priority, and they'll be able to move quickly through the corridor in downtown. We expect no more than 5 minutes of additional travel time from making that deviation and coming into downtown, while it also gives us the opportunity to add another market to that service by being able to connect people in the Brandon area into downtown, and also being able to give folks an opportunity to get onto the service at those stops in downtown. Another important clarification on express service from Brandon is that overall there's a real improvement in terms of what's available in this proposal with express service from Brandon. The new limited expresses, the 60 and 360 LX, those are new routes that run hourly and are going to provide connectivity from Brandon to downtown every 30 minutes. With a quick trip into downtown, and then on the 60 from downtown to Tampa International Airport and Northwest Transfer Center, providing a cross-county connection with a quick speed. And then on the 360 LX, continuing from downtown south to Britton Plaza and MacDill.
And Mr. Sandusky, I'd like us to stress the 360 is a new benefit also for our folks at the base. I don't need to get confirmation, I think, from the veterans here. How many times did you always get off work at 4:30? And right now we strand you. We can't get you home after 4:30. This new route will allow you to get your kid to the pediatrician at 8 a.m. and get to the base at 9 and not have to drive. Also consider folks who work at the Burger Kings or some of those shift locations can get off base now, make a connection downtown to go home. Right now we don't offer that. And folks can wrap up later in the evening, which is a service which we don't offer. And as Marco's noting, this will run throughout the week.
Thank you. So moving on to the Route 46 and the Route 37, this is another one we heard quite a bit about. and where we've gone back and tried to look at our math again and try to understand the rationale, working with our consultants and trying to see what kind of alternatives there are. On the Route 46, we're removing a segment of the Route 46, which is a route that goes from downtown out to the Brandon area now. The segment that serves Palmetto Beach and Causeway Boulevard. That segment of the route has about 1.1 boardings per mile. And under 15 boardings per hour on the Route 46 is about the average. What we're doing with the Route 46 is we're taking a route that has a lot of potential for growth on one segment, and we're trying to invest in the quality of that segment of the route. And we are looking at what kind of alternatives might be available for that Palmetto Beach area. And in the TDP, one of the recommendations, and that's phased into the plan there, is to add potentially a hyperlink van-based type of service for that area that has not gained the kind of ridership that the other segment of the 46 has gained, but may provide some connectivity to the network. On the Route 37, which sort of interplays with the Route 46, what we're doing with Route 37 is trying to improve the directness of travel to be able to get to the Brandon Mall with a quicker trip time. And so those routes working together help overall improve the quality and the quickness of the service in the Brandon area. South County, we spent a lot of time and received a lot of comments on service in South County. To say that folks in South County are energized over our proposal is a little bit of an understatement. As you know, Commissioner White and Commissioner Merman conducted a town hall down there on transportation issues early on in our redesign outreach process, and we got an earful. And we didn't end there. So we spent a lot of time down in South County trying to understand the needs and desires of the residents in that community for transit, because there's a lot of enthusiasm and interest in what we're doing, and yet there's very little ridership on the service that we're providing. So clearly there's a disconnect, and we want to be able to do better. But let me lay out for you just very briefly what some of the key points here are on our proposal to eliminate the 53LX and the 47LX. These are two very poor performing routes currently. So while there's a lot of enthusiasm for the service, there isn't a lot of ridership on it. The 53LX has less than 5 passengers per trip. It's very easily our lowest performing route. At a cost of $511,000 a year, it's hard to justify that as a good investment, especially when we're consolidating, making some other really challenging decisions in terms of the recommendation overall. The 47LX similarly has about 63 passengers a day. It does about 4 trips. So it's not as poor performing as the 53, but at a cost of $150,000 annually, it takes the cost per trip to about $10, which is twice what our average is on our service overall. So what we propose to do in South County is we want to make sure that people have the ability to connect to and use transit, and that our service better meets their needs in the short term, but also importantly that we build something that works for South County residents in the long run. So the South County Flex will remain. We look forward to and would like to be able to overlay a hyperlink zone down there, because that's a service that it seems would be very attractive to residents down in that area, where you have a point-to-point connection at a flat fare. The Route 31 continues to provide connectivity from South County up to the Brandon Mall. And from the Brandon Mall, there are a lot of much improved connections into downtown and other, and from there, the rest of the network. Additionally, we heard a lot from South County residents that while the alternative that we propose is that the South County Flex provides connectivity to the Route 31, it would require a transfer. And for a lot of the residents that we talked to at Sun City Center, Kings Point, it was important to have a service that didn't require a connection, but provided the ability to get up to the hospital or get up to the mall. So we've looked at the possibility of operating a service at 2 or 3 days a week, because there was also a consensus that this is a service that may not be needed every day of the week. That's a service that people may want to be able to use on a more limited basis. So a service like that, potentially with a partnership with Sunshine Line to operate it, could be a reasonable way to provide a new transit option to those residents, and one that more of those residents would be likely to use. On the Route 200X, while we heard a lot of comment on the Route 200X, this is one of those routes where the numbers sort of speak for themselves. The Route 200X right now is a cross-county route that the state paid for previously. We received an FDOT Urban Corridor grant to fund that. That grant expired about 1.5 years ago. HART has been paying for that route, and the route transports folks from Pinellas County over to Hillsborough County, and we average about 8 boardings per service hour on that service. It's a very low amount of ridership, and at the cost at HART's dime for a cross-county service, those resources, it's recommended, could be better used and invested elsewhere, while we're committed to working with those 200X riders to help find alternatives. And we've been working very closely through this process with T-BARTA to help get van pooling options in front of folks, because oftentimes van pooling is a much more attractive alternative for someone, because you can build and have a schedule that really works exactly for the commute that you need to be able to make. On the Route 60LX and 360LX, one of the considerations that we made through the public input period is that on Sundays, the cost to continue operating that service on Sundays at the same level as the Monday through Saturday service would be about $250,000. We would save about $250,000 if we took those routes, the 60 and the 360, and shortened them and had them just operate for the 60LX, operate the segment from downtown to the airport and Northwest Transfer Center, and on the 360, the segment from Britton Plaza to McDill. So rather than operating the full length of the route, in order to realize some additional cost savings, we recommended to operate a shorter trips on Sundays only for those 2 routes. As you heard from Ms. Egan, the HART Flex Brandon is probably was one of the areas that we heard the most comment about. And this is a tough one, because we implemented the Brandon hyperlink zone there recently, and have been working hard to get that hyperlink service to help folks out in the Brandon area make better connections. We heard a lot about hyperlink from folks when we were out doing the outreach. We heard that it doesn't work, that it's too expensive, that when you need a ride and want it, that the app's not working. And we're listening to people on that. Hyperlink is a pilot program that we are very invested in, and we've seen a lot of promise from, but there are some kinks in the pilot. And so we're trying to identify ways to make hyperlink work better in all of the zones, but especially in the Brandon area. There's a lot of potential for hyperlink to be a lower cost service for HART to operate and a better product for our customer. But we have to get the product working a little bit better. And so we realize that, and we're proposing today, in addition to the revisions that are in the packet, we suggest that we continue to operate the Brandon Flex for another 6 months while we make serious improvements to hyperlink, and we prove ourselves and show our customers that hyperlink can work and provide a better level of service. And at that point, working with the community, if hyperlink is an alternative that is attractive, that provides a cost competitive alternative, there's a lot of potential there to be able to move forward with hyperlink in the Brandon area. Finally, one of the things we heard a lot about, and this is in sort of in the category of misconceptions about the plan, this plan does not remove service from Social Security on Cypress. In fact, it provides a little bit better level of service to the Social Security building that's on Cypress, to the Tampa Housing Authority, to McDonald Training Center. So right now, those 3 locations are served by the Route 10. Our proposal eliminates the Route 10, but it extends the South Tampa Flex service, a service that you can walk up to the stop to get, or you can call and reserve a ride ahead of time, and it will continue to serve the Social Security building on Cypress, the McDonald Training Center on Cypress, and Tampa Housing Authority on Cypress at hourly frequency, which is already an improvement over what the Route 10 currently operates at. So I talked about how this Mission Max, this redesign of the system is about rationalizing the system. Ultimately, this plan saves HART $5.8 million annually in annual operating cost. But the way that we get to the $5.8 million mark is by delaying some of the improvements that were proposed in the initial COA. So there are some frequency improvements and 2 new routes that were proposed that we propose to implement, but to delay their implementation a year, to a year when we anticipate we can probably afford to implement those. So the Route 12 increase to every 15 minutes would be implemented in FY 2019. We would increase the frequency on the Route 34 this year to every 20 minutes, but we would delay increasing it further to every 15 minutes, which comes at a significant additional cost. The Route 11, which is a new route that provides connectivity from downtown to Main Street, Spruce, and International Plaza. That route requires significant new infrastructure, bus stop infrastructure, and to give us the time and the ability to implement that route with that infrastructure in place, we're proposing to implement that in the future and not along with the rest of these service changes. Additionally, the Route 275 LX, which is a new hourly limited stop route that would provide service from the university area to downtown and to Tampa International Airport, we're proposing to delay implementation of that new route as well. So here we have it. This is the existing system and the revised proposal that we've brought to you today. As you can see, this is a network that is smart, it's a grid-based system, and it provides a solid foundation for future growth. We heard a lot through this process, and it was very touching for me to hear from a lot of longtime HART riders, to hear them talk to us about how far HART has come, right? I can't tell you how many times people came up to us and said, I remember when HARTline didn't operate on holidays, when HARTline didn't have late night service. And it gave me a new appreciation for how far we've come. And so it's important for us to stress today that this is about how far we'll go and about setting a baseline and a foundation for where we can go into the future. And this is the smart way for us to get to the kind of future that many of the folks who we talk to through all of these outreaches want to see, and the future that they rely on and need from their transit system. And so we make the investments in this network to improve frequency. And in our funded transit development plan, which you'll see at the committee meeting next week, the funded plan for the TDP proposes to have 10 routes within the next 5 to 6 years that are running every 15 minutes or better. 5 routes that run north-south and 5 routes running east-west. This is the foundation on which we build that high-frequency network and continue to add innovative solutions that help connect people quicker and provide them the level of service that they need to get to the places that they need to go. Importantly, for the fiscal year that we're entering into, and you'll hear this from Mr. Seward in his presentation of the proposed budget, importantly, this proposal results in cost savings of approximately $5.8 million. That's after having reinvested some of the savings into improvements in the system. It also further will help us to reduce our bus fleet overall so that the vehicles that are out there on the street are our newest vehicles, that they're the most reliable, that we increase and we accelerate, therefore, also the transition to CNG, which results in additional cost savings to us. The more CNG vehicles we have out there operating, the better from a financial perspective. It also helps us to increase capacity at 21st Avenue, where, as you know, there are some constraints in terms of space for vehicles, and gives us the platform to be able to grow and grow in a really smart way. And importantly, this redesign of the system, Mission Max, ensures that we continue to deliver value to the taxpayers and deliver a quality of service that our customers expect. Ultimately, Mission Max, as Ms. Egan said, it improves transit service for over 85% of our customers. It's going to reduce operating costs for us by $5.8 million, while also providing our customers with quicker trips to key destinations, not just to downtown. And it's going to reinvest and improve frequency on core routes and give us the ability to grow and build on this foundation in a very smart way. It also ensures that almost every route we operate will operate 7 days a week. We'll run from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekends. And it ensures that current weekend late night routes continue to operate until midnight. So this is about building a network that is more modern, that's better aligned with where people live and where they want to go. And it ensures that we provide an excellent level of service in those areas where we provide service, that it's a level of service that we are proud to provide and that people want to use. So with that, I'll take any questions that you have.
Ms. Egan, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, to wrap up from some of Marco's points, today we heard that HART is providing excellent service. We did not hear that our drivers were surly, that service was bad or unreliable. We have invested at extremely high levels in the past 3 to 5 years to ensure that we have good service and we have good staff. So this is not as much of a reset as a transformation and a capstone. You've heard throughout the year changing our business processes. You'll hear that in Mr. Seward's presentation. Next year, you will continue to hear how we are looking at the best providers of the services we need, internal business processes, external support, so we are maximizing our ability to invest in the future. This is a transformation from an agency that puts every dime on the road into an agency that can save for local grants and support a maintenance facility that is not 40 years old. And most importantly, can support what our region needs growing and moving into the future. We have to be able to save for our future. We have to be able to invest. It is a long process. It's an arduous process, but this pivots us toward a future. I'd also like to stress in Mr. Sandusky's presentation, you saw an awful lot of improvements to the first proposals that came from the consultants. We pride ourselves on being responsive. In the 7 years I've been at HART, we have never come back with proposals that were the same as what we first brought the board. Our planning committee and our board rightfully saw this as a transformative change when we introduced this in May and June. We're proud of the work we've done to talk to folks. We are proud of the staff who somehow worked 25 hours a day, though that hasn't even been possible, to try to make this go forward. And please bear in mind that once the board votes today, we will move into the execution phase tomorrow, led by our project management office. We will be out on the streets. We will be training. You've already seen HART vehicles with GoPro cameras recording routes so our patrons can see where their bus stops will be and we can train. And again, the day that service begins, we will have additional buses out there. No one will be left behind. We will be fare free on Sunday and Monday so our operators can focus on service and not just the fare box. This will happen by October 12th, 4 days after the change. Our commitment is it will be butter. It will be running exactly like it's always been out there. And we look forward to your support to continue to transform and move into the future Hillsborough County deserves.
Thank you, Ms. Egan. Commissioner White, you recognize.
Thank you. And just to make sure I'm not missing something, it is action item C where the board will be taking action.
Yes, sir,
on
after
this
the
plan.
budget discussion.
Okay. And a question about the savings. How much of that $5.8 million savings is attributed to the changes delayed until FY19? You had said that that's factored into the $5.8 million.
And Commissioner, allow me to clarify, that's not, the improvements for fiscal 19 are not service we're running today, so it's not factored into the 5.8 million per se. If we were to implement them though, our scheduling team can tell you what that would cost when we add those things in 19 and 20.
Okay, I understood you to say that's factored into the 5.8 million. So by not implementing them now, that's part of the $5.8 million savings.
That's right, yes.
And we're going to get numbers on that, gentlemen, the 275, the 12, the 34s, as best we can? Okay.
You need to come to the microphone, sir. You need to come to the mic.
Good morning. Steve Fagenbaum, Director of Service Development. The projects that are proposed to be delayed until 2019 will run approximately about $1.7 million. And we're calculating right now that based upon increases in ad valorem and some other savings that we'll be able to afford it in 2019. We may have to hedge it a little bit. We may have to go a little bit back to 2020, but our intent is to implement those 4 particular changes within the next 2 years. And as Marco stated in his presentation, we also intend to increase the frequency to every 15 minutes on a total of 10 routes within the next 6 years.
So just to make sure I'm understanding this right, if we look at this $5.8 million savings, 1.7 million of that is attributed to delaying these projects to FY19.
No, sir. If we implemented these projects, it would be additional expense, but since it's nothing that we are taking out of the network, it's an expense that we are avoiding as opposed to an expense we're mitigating.
Let me state that a different way. Included in that $5.8 million savings is $1.7 million in avoided costs by delaying those projects until FY19. That's what I think I'm hearing.
Based off of current service. From our current service, if we were to run our current service.
Sir, come to the mic. Come to the mic. Come to the mic.
Yeah, if we were, oh yeah, you better.
I'm sorry, I'm Philip St. Pierre, Manager of Scheduling Services for HART. Yeah, that's based off of the current service that we run today. If we ran it today versus the network that we're proposing, it's 5.8 million in savings.
Yeah, 1.7 is deferred.
Turn your mic on.
What I'm trying to say is
Get a
that
total
the
cost
savings from the changes before us would be 4.1, from what I'm hearing.
No, it's 5.8. Right now, the service level that we run today compared to the service level that we are proposing in this is a difference of $5.8 million in total operating costs.
So if we took the system we have right now.
Yes.
And we changed that in October.
Yes. Your annual savings is $5.8 million.
That's going to save us $5.8 million.
Yes.
I'm confused as to why we mentioned the delay of the projects to FY19 as somehow being factored in.
Because they were part of the original proposal that before we took it out to the public, and then there are other factors came into play. So we felt that these were services that were best deferred until the next couple of years.
But the 1 year savings and that deferral is not part of the 5.8 million?
I'm not sure.
But by not operating those 2 new routes and the frequency improvement on those 2 routes, we're delaying what would be an additional cost into a future year rather than into this year.
So I totally understand what you're saying, but in my mind, I hear you saying that that's factored into the $5.8 million savings.
Commissioner White? If I may, sir, 5.8 is what we have in the maps in front of you. The 1.7 that we're talking about for 2019 would be the same as if the board were to ask us to make a $300,000 improvement today, a $2 million improvement today. Anything which we are not doing that the board would like us to do obviously would impact that 5.8 million. We did address it primarily because these were things which came up from our consultant for recommendation for implementation. For cost purposes, for instance, on the 12, the 34, the 275, we cannot deliver a balanced budget to you and operate those services. Route 11, there is nothing out there yet, so that's money that we would be spending poorly if we were to run a route in that area. But I think landing the plane on it is yes, there's 1.7 million that we could have been spending, all things being equal, and if you want to add the 1.7 into the 5.8, it would be a 4.1, that is correct. However, I think you'll see in the slides coming from Mr. Seward, that's not a feasible conversation for us.
No, I understand. I think you've stated it. I think you're saying the same thing I'm saying it. If these projects were implemented in FY19, or excuse me, FY18, right now, the current budget that we're about to go to work on, the savings would be 4.1 million.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Councilman Donahue, you recognize.
Are you addressing the same? Are you addressing the same? I defer. Mr. Melendez, he's addressing the same issue.
Okay. Ms. Melendez, you recognize. Turn your mic on, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is just for clarification, a question to Commissioner White's concern. Would our vote in the affirmative today on this plan in any way bind us to the 1.7 million that's been identified? And in other words,
No.
it's not part of our vote today.
No,
That's
sir.
my understanding.
No, sir.
Okay,
It'll be part of our transit development plan.
Right.
Which is a separate document and a separate effort, but we will be presenting that to the planning committee a week from today and to the full board, I believe, on September 11th.
So just to clarify, a vote in the affirmative for agenda item C doesn't bind us or obligate us to spending the 1.7?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Donahue, you recognize.
Thank you.
Push your.
Get my microphone to stay on. Oh, there you go. As a person who obviously is wearing two hats here today, one representing what appears to be about 45% of the speakers from Temple Terrace. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. And I absolutely want to speak for them and to them, but also let you know that I recognize that I'm also wearing the fiduciary hat of a HART board member. And so I can see what everyone is saying about the savings and about we have to do this. Your kitchen table math says you can't afford it, you have to make changes. Now, obviously, this was not done on a paper napkin. I can tell how much work has gone into this, and I appreciate it. And I really do appreciate that you have stated over and over that you've made alternate arrangements and changed the plan and tweaked it here and there so that it works. So my question to you is, because today we have heard about a very specific route, which is 57, and it sounds as if it's being addressed, but it sounds rather vague, I'm sure, to the audience. I know I don't have a clear grasp of it, which is exactly why I waited until today to address Mr. Romano, if he's still in the audience, because I didn't want to give him incomplete information. So how do we, aside from, and I will, getting on the bus and talking to the people who are on the bus, along with the representative from HART, of course, how do we get that information to people now that the route has been altered, has been changed, it's been abandoned, whatever the situation is, before we vote on this? So I just need to know, if I vote for this plan, totally unaltered, although, I'm sure that there are some people who would like for us to tweak it still. I'm just not I'm not sure how I would address this to my constituents in Temple Terrace who ride both 57 and 21.
So following, should the board authorize moving forward with this change today, we will be conducting a massive outreach effort to make sure that, we move into the phase of helping to make sure that folks are ready to transition and use the new system on October 8th. And so we'll be doing a lot of grassroots outreach. We'll be engaging and using social media and digital tools, but a big component of what we'll do with outreach is going to be out talking face-to-face with people, riding their routes, getting patron notices out, making sure that people know exactly what to expect on October 8th. As far as the Route 57, I think we're enthused about the potential for the hyperlink zone because of its ability to help provide coverage and connectivity for people who are traveling right there in that area that's served by the 57 today. We've been working very diligently to look at the potential to be able to move one of our current zones over to that area, and it looks like that is something that we are going to be able to do. And so something that looked like something that's feasible is looking more and more like it will be a reality, and it's our intent to be able to roll out that change with hyperlink along with some improvements to how the fare structure works too, in conjunction with the overall modification that takes place on October 8th.
Okay. On that sounds like a good approach. And I did hear you also say that they would be grandfathered in. I wasn't sure what that meant.
Yes, Councilwoman. Paratransit is anchored to our local route network. It's a 3/4 mile buffer around a local route. Again, we have taken numerous steps to ensure we will have as much of that service covered as possible. And our commitment from our Chief Operating Officer and Director of Ops Support, again, people received phone calls Saturday because we had seen some of their trips would be impacted. We reached out to them. So our commitment is for our folks along this 57 in Temple Terrace. They will have either hyperlink or some level of service through HART Plus. We will actively partner with Sunshine Line because it is less cost per trip and less cost per hour, and also expand our yellow cab program. But we will grandfather in the paratransit patrons, and we will expand the hyperlink zone. That is the proposal. And I believe once we get to the action item discussion, a board member could move to require that as part of this, that be part of the Temple Terrace conversation.
She will.
And I do want to stress, we would love a robust conversation today. To balance our budget for next year, we need clarification on the schedule change today. If we do not vote on it today, and we defer to September, every month adds another $500,000 to $600,000 that we have to mitigate in the budget. So the vote today allows us to provide service to the maximum number of people.
Okay. I just have one other question about Route 21 X. They currently have 2 buses running. Has there been any consideration of just reducing it to 1?
Yeah, there was, but that's something we really try not to do. That's like no service at all. I mean, we do have one route out there now, and that's also being proposed for elimination, the 28X, because there you're essentially operating just a big carpool. Mm-hmm. And there's people, one of the reasons that we don't do well with expresses is the fact that we don't offer enough of it. And so people who have multiple work times, they can't use it because we only hit one time with our expresses. There's no backup for the most part. We're putting a little bit of a correction in there with the 60LX and 360LX that are going to run longer. So people who've been complaining about that at McDill will have a midday alternative. But one doesn't really do that much good. What our experience has always been when we've reduced these routes, we even lose more riders and they become even that much more irrelevant.
Okay, so if I meet with this group, I could talk to them about other alternatives.
And in many instances, van pooling can be a very attractive alternative. And the van pooling isn't what it was 10 years ago. It's improved in a lot of ways, and T-BARTA has really done a great job with the van pooling program and the work that they're doing with Enterprise. Van pooling really can be a very cost-effective alternative, especially in those instances where what we're doing now is essentially providing a van pool with a vehicle that's far too expensive to operate that.
Right. Thank you so much.
One other thing about van pools is that the benefit for van pools the benefit that a lot of businesses or like McDill for the DoD employees and so forth, the benefit that they give for bus passes also translates to van pool. So a lot of times they could go and make a shift to van pool, which might be a more relevant service for them to use, and still retain the benefit from their employer.
Okay, thank you so much.
Could you explain Route 51 for Temple Terrace, please?
So what's going to happen with the Route 51 currently travels from downtown to Wesley Chapel, to a new park and ride that's by Wiregrass Mall and Florida Hospital. What will happen in this proposal is that route on the morning trips is going to come off the interstate. It's going to make a stop at the Temple Terrace park and ride, and then it'll continue the trip into downtown. That'll be on the morning trips only, but it's something that in the dialogue with many of the riders that commented on the proposal there, it's something that they were they expressed interest in, and we'll see how it works. We want to put it out there and see how many people board there at the Temple Terrace Park and Ride. But this may be and was an attractive alternative to some of those commuters trying to get in quickly into downtown. We're taking the Route 6, which is a local route, in terms of schedule and the length of the trip, was going to take them a long time.
Now, before I call on Councilwoman, Ms. Shanahan, you said it does that in the morning, it comes off the interstate and goes to Temple Terrace Park and Ride in the morning, but it doesn't do it in the afternoon.
Right.
That throws up a flag, so tell people why.
What we propose to do is to make that modification in the morning service, and then in order to get home for that afternoon and really throughout the rest of the day, the rider will continue to have access to the local route, which provides the connectivity. Okay. It's going to take a little bit longer to get there, but they'll be able to get to their destination.
And the patrons who came to our public hearing, Commissioner, indicated they go home at varied times. They all have to be at work between 7 and 7:45. They go home at 3:30. They go home at 4. They work here in County Center. And they understood there wasn't a density for an afternoon trip, but they said in the morning they could commit. So their recommendation, their preference, was only to cover the morning trip.
Ms. Shanahan, you recognize.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the people that came to speak today. It was very educational. I know it was an effort, and it was very much appreciated. As I read this when I got the book last week, and I was sorry I missed the public hearings because I was out traveling, it appears that there are 7 routes out of 46 routes that were significantly impacted with greater than 10 or greater comments, negative comments. So that's about a 15%, impact. So kudos to HART in terms of at least distilling it down to those issues. And I just want to get some assurances and make some challenges to other HART directors that wear other hats. First of all, I was dependent on public transit when I lived in New York. Now, granted, we had a much fuller-bodied service, but for 10 years, I did not have a car. I used transit to get to work. I think it's very important to understand that you can't say, we might get hyperlink. We're aiming to get hyperlink. We might get this installed. You have to guarantee that the people that use this service to get to work can get to work. And so I just want to be careful about, the practical policy concept of goal versus having the statement of it will be done. And I think that's really important from a credibility and from a service delivery perspective. I also would challenge both HART and some of our membership here that control Sunshine Services. I still do not think that we coordinate that we maximize that is beneficial in terms of the delivery of services to the impacted constituencies in Hillsborough County. And I don't know about fiefdoms. I'm not an elected official. I don't know how that's supposed to work. It's not working. And I don't think we're maximizing the taxpayer dollars or the services. I heard several times today that taxi cabs deny service to service dogs. That's unconstitutional. It should be illegal. Well, then they should be fined. I mean, I have to tell you that I know the PTC got itself blown up by its own, not necessarily thoughtful way that they were going about trying to instill alternative rider service in the county. But I don't know where the jurisdiction now lands. I think it's the commission. There should be a call-in number, and if you get that, your license is pulled for 30 days. I don't care. That's just not, that should not be acceptable. And I think some of these, I'm not here to gain, I hear these things that we got through our process, and I think there's action items that also affect the ability of HART to make a statement on this. And I really feel strongly about that. That's just, it's like, taxi cabs in New York that didn't pick up people going north of 125. That's not conscionable. And the only other thing that I would challenge HART to make sure that you're doing in this process, because you're going to go into the implementation process, which, again, I commend the work, I commend the hearings, I commend the adjustments, is to not necessarily think that every ride, every day, you have to stay on the same route. So I'm not saying, accommodate routes, but, make sure you're looking at flexibility in the service delivery model in terms of the hours of when, like for somebody to say to me, we're going to have 15-minute ridership, not every route demands 15-minute ridership. So maybe you have services where you do 15 minutes in the morning while people are getting to work and 15 minutes in the afternoon, but then during the middle of the day, you can go to hour service. That saves you money in the process of the ability to make sure you have services to offer the paratransit or the HART Plus. And so it's, I know I support the mission, I support the recommendation, I'm going to vote for this today, but I think you really have to take the comments that we've heard through this process, which have been healthy, and really make sure that we're advocating for service delivery to those that are dependent on transit to get to their jobs and live their lives.
Commissioner Merwin, you recognize.
Thank you. I have a couple questions, and I'll reserve some comments till we get to the actual item. One is about the 24X and the 25LX from Fishhawk to MacDill. I understand you're going to reduce from 5 to 3. Is that from 5 to 3 trips each way? Is that still the case?
Yes.
Okay, you understand and then you're going to stop downtown.
So we have, that's what we've proposed, while we will also be monitoring the loads, because I know that's a concern of the riders on those routes.
It's full all the time. I've ridden on them.
So to ensure that we have the flexibility to be able to insert trips if we need to based on demand. We do want to ensure ultimately that our customers are safe and they're comfortable on that trip. And I know that's of utmost importance and something that was communicated to us in this period.
And operationally, Commissioner, we will not be asking a full bus to add passengers downtown. We will not be asking people to stand on buses on the crosstown.
Well, okay, so here's where I see a couple issues, and this has come from a deputy chief from US CENTCOM. Number one, whenever you have public hearings, they are claiming they were never notified. But no one could be here today because they're all down at MacDill serving our country. So I think we need to listen hard to what their concerns are, because you have not heard them yet. By going from 5 to 3, you do two things. You put 200 more cars back on the road, because you will force these individuals back into their cars, which will be disastrous for commuters and traffic going. And I think the second thing is that you're going to they purchased, the Department of Transportation subsidizes these fares on HART. So that's another thing that you kind of do away with in the process. But I think that we need to take a hard look. This also hurts our ridership projections for the ferry. If and when this gets started. This is something that the that the McDill community has been wanting, South County community has been wanting in a big way. And if we reduce down and force these people into cars, we could potentially reduce ridership, people using the ferry. So I know that we're just moving forward today. This is not a final vote, and I will vote to move forward. But I think you need to communicate with this individual who I have the email. Actually, I got 2 emails. I think all of us, he sent it to everybody. But we need to make sure that they are one of our most important riders, the veterans and active military. And with the disabled, these have got to be our 2 top populations that we serve. Because I know why they're living out in South County, because it's affordable housing. And they are not making, a lot of them don't have the ability to have cars. And we need to make sure that we can answer that need, just like all the other ones mentioned when we were going through the public testimony. And I do thank everyone for coming out here. It's just showing respect to the military and offering that capability. The other one, of course, I can't leave without making a comment about South County and service. It's where we have the most people and most cars right now. We don't market service to that community. That's why you don't have ridership. I'd love to see you try a pilot system for 6 months. I think you'd have tremendous ridership, especially if it's express service down 41 into downtown or up 75. But I think that we're really cutting our nose to spite our face here if we don't wake up and realize the ridership exists in South County. And I'm happy that you're going to answer the needs from Sun City. And third is I have been talking to Scott Clark. He runs our Sunshine line. And when you come back next Monday, I would like to see you develop a plan working with Sunshine Line so that not one disabled individual in this community who needs transportation and relies on us is going to go without service or get to their job. I want to see a plan. And this is very, very important to me. In Tallahassee, we tried to, well, I didn't do it, but the legislature tried to cut services to disabled. I've sit through hearings like this, and it's unconscionable that we don't answer their needs first above everybody else in our community. I do applaud what you're trying to do. I completely understand. I think you're going to build ridership. I think it'll be strong. You're creating a very sustainable system. Frequency and sustainability were 2 important things. But I would like to see a plan, and Scott Clark has been watching this meeting, and my staff brought a memo to me. They are here to serve and to help us. So let's get to work, get with them, and make sure that not one person is without service who's disabled in our community. Thank you.
Ms. Egan, you're recognized.
Commissioner, we'll bring that information to you next week. We'll also bring a quick update on our conversations with Colonel Fallman, our main contact at the base. He's retired, but he's in a civilian capacity at the base now, and the conversations we've had, and an update also on the ferry. And essentially how this is laying the groundwork to make sure that we've got all of this covered for the base. We'll get you that update.
Mr. Jacob, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, thank you again to everybody who came today. You know, those of you still here, I can't express how much I appreciate it as a member of this board for you to come out and express your views. I think there's three quick things I want to do. I think a couple of them have been talked about already. One of the things I think we need to be very careful of is that we have to have a safety net in place. This is not an easy decision, and it's not one that we take lightly here. We are impacting people's lives, and how do we put a safety net in place to make sure, I think as Commissioner Merman said, that we ensure that the people who really rely on this service are available, the service is available to them in one way, shape, or form. I've heard a lot said today about HART Plus, and I too was going to jump in on the yellow cab comment, Director Shanahan. For me, if somebody has refused a ride, we need to take swift action, we need to take decisive action, and we need to take action that sends a message to those who do that, period. And I think that's our responsibility as an organization and as a board to make sure we do that. The last thing is, I think those of us on the board, all of us on the board, need to look at ways we can look for new sources of revenue. That's pretty obvious, and we have to figure that out. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that we are going to be challenged with budgetary constraints, just like every other organization is, and we have to look at the opportunities out there. I think at the last meeting, Commissioner Kemp, you were very passionate about your thoughts on funding for the organization, and I would ask how we can take a look at opportunities to take those first steps to see if that is a viable option, and we have support within the commission and within the community to do that. Because I think should we start to look at other options, I think other doors will open for it. Because one thing that I want to set a goal is how do we continue to increase our revenue so we can increase the service and not have to face these kinds of decisions again. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. Commissioner White, you recognized.
Thank you. And in regards to the finality of today's vote, I mean, as I understand it, there is finality in today's vote. I mean, if the board approves these proposed changes, they're implemented effective October 8th, correct?
Yes, sir. This is from here today, you will get an update briefly from Jeff Seward about the budget. We cannot finalize the budget, and we bring you that presentation in 2 weeks without knowing what our service footprint would be. However, we do have the ability to make caveats we have some flexibility, but you will be voting today on the meat and potatoes of the schedule change. And we need that closure to be able to wrap up our budget.
Okay. I don't recall on the motion to waive the rules. Are we going to take up item C before we hear the budget presentation, or is that still going to fall in order?
Well, I wanted to bring up, to your question, I wanted to bring up this, the mission before the budget, because we had a lot of people still here. And I knew we were going to be going for a long time. That's why I brought it up. So if we want to wait and hear the budget first and then come back to this and vote on it, we can do that, or we can vote on it now. And
I do have a budget question that relates directly to this issue, so I just want to ask it
well,
now.
what we can do then is that we'll table this, if it's okay with the board, hear the budget presentation, vote on the budget issue, and then come back to this.
You're not voting on a budget.
Well, not vote on the budget, we'll hear the budget presentation, then come back to this item.
I do want to ask one specific budget question now, though, in the context of this discussion.
Okay.
Is the the $2 million that HART potentially stands to receive from the county commission factored into the proposed budget?
No, sir. And that first, thank you to the BOCC, the Board of County Commissioners, for giving us the option for that $2 million. It is not. Until we are able to come back to county commission and receive that as dedicated funding, we will not have that in our budget. And in the time frame which is required for us to be able to finish our budget and get a schedule change out the door, it simply was not possible for us to be able to circle back and be responsive to what the BOCC is requiring for additional information. Okay. So we'll be coming back to you with that. Yes, sir.
So that is likely to not be included in our final proposed budget? When
No,
we
sir.
take action on a final budget?
Your
in
first
September.
your first vote for the budget will be September 12th. Your next one will be September 26th. We can move as quickly as the process allows, but at this point, it is not factored in there, no, sir.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other discussion on our Mission Max overview? Commissioner Kemp, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also just want to thank all of you who attended to this hearing. All of you have went and expressed your concerns, your needs at any of the 30 hearings. I know the other night, many of us were at HART, and the hearing then went on for about 3 hours, I think, and we heard from at least more than 100 people attended. I'm not sure how many people spoke. We heard a lot of concerns about a lot of different routes, and I want to thank you for bringing all these up, because it gives us an opportunity to know what we can't know and to work and address these issues, of which I know many of us have been asking a lot of questions and doing a lot of research on the concerns that you all have had, even out many times not in the public, but going over this plan over again, trying to figure out what we can do. I want to thank also the other board members who brought up some of the concerns, like the Sunshine Line. I'm not aware of a lack of coordination, so that's appreciated and will be something that I'll focus on. Vanpool, T-BARDA is a underutilized program. I know the county's going to make an investment in that, and not everybody can utilize that, but it is a great option, and actually is used by, I think I was taken aback to learn that of the 100 vans they have available, 86 of them are going to MacDill. And so I think for that, it's a possibility, but for many others, if they can coordinate a trip between where they are and to where they're going, the Vanpool can be a really excellent option that can be worked out for some of those trips. And I just think it's an amazing program, and one that works for both the group that's using it, and us in helping to provide transportation. So I hope we focus on that. Also, with concerns of the ferry, we are so blessed to have an opportunity that we have water around, unlike so many other places, and have such low-cost infrastructure that we can provide to get people and move people around. We're uniquely positioned to do that. So I really look to the ferry program for helping many people in the future, and to free up a lot of our buses for other trips. And I just think our ferry is going to be a real great opportunity for us in the future, both initially, and I think it will end up having much expansion, as it is in New York City, where they just added 19 new ferries to get people around for commuting. I am sorry, as I've said before, that our system here is just so incredibly underfunded. I don't think it can be said enough. We have the same funding that they have in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and Macon, Georgia for this place. Even Pinellas, two counties in the state of Florida have only property taxes to fund their service, and that's Hillsborough and Pinellas. Pinellas even has 3/4 mil. We have half mil. We have 3 times the coverage area. We're in a really, really tough position. It can't be said enough. So I hope that all of you will also make sure that you contact your county commissioners and let them know that that we need to really look at our service and doing everything we can, because we are so underfunded and desperate. I also agree with Commissioner Merman that we certainly have to look at people who have no other options and do everything we can. And I appreciate that HART is doing, Ms. Egan and HART is doing everything they can in a really personalized way, I think, to look at this and to let everyone know and do everything we can to move ahead in the best way possible to serve the greatest number of people and provide the options that we need to. But we are, again, desperately underfunded. I will be supporting this. I think it's a good move, but we want to continue to hear moving forward, where we, what works well and what doesn't. I just want to ask one question. If we were to find something that was really performing very poorly as soon as this was implemented, something that we saw that needed some attention, how flexible is doing, maybe I could ask Ms. Egan, how flexible, what flexibility do we have to address that?
Thank you, Commissioner. We do 3 schedule changes within a year. Things which require more than minor modifications go into a major schedule change. But items such as McDill service, we will have additional buses out there in the morning. We'll have one of the benefits of shrinking our fleet is we'll have more vehicles available. If it is something which we're posting that's just an addition to a trip, we can make that change immediately, and it's essentially an insert or a detour. A robust, a really big change would probably take us about 4 months to get to, but we have the ability to be flexible the day of implementation.
Thank you. And I'll just say this too, I also, for the first time at any of these public hearings, I've never ever heard anything about a service dog not being allowed into a cab. This is the first time in I've never heard it before, and I heard it several times now, so I think our attention will be to that, obviously. So we thank you for raising that issue.
Councilman Suarez recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be as quick as possible. First of all my colleagues here on the board mentioned quite a few of the things that I was thinking about, concerning, first of all, the service dogs. Here's a problem that we have touched on just a little bit, but not much. We do have a contract with the taxi cab companies concerning this. There must be some obligation by them to make sure that they are carrying service dogs, and if not, I think that we should redo our contract to make sure that they have to do that, and that if they don't, that they will lose that contract. So that's the first thing I would suggest. You don't have to answer the question now. You just have to go and do research. And I would love to make a motion to that effect to come back to us to our next regular board meeting concerning that particular contract.
Allow me to interject, sir. It is a requirement of the contract and the ADA.
Yes, sir. Hold. There was a motion on the floor by Councilman Suarez. Is there a second? Second. There's a second to the motion. Now for discussion. Now you recognize.
Thank you, sir. It is in the contract, but more transcending that to Director Shanahan's point, it is the law of the land.
I totally get that.
Reinforced not just from the ADA service provision, it is the requirement of any public transportation, but we will clearly comply with the motion.
Let me clarify my motion then, that to make sure that we can remove them as a provider if they are not providing that based on evidence that's presented by us to them. That's probably the best way of doing it, because if we have to worry about an enforcement mechanism that has nothing to do with money, it might take a long time before we get them to stop doing that. So if they lose a contract, I guarantee you they're going to stop doing it. That's my guess.
The discussion now. This is now discussion on the motion. Commissioner Merman, you recognize.
I'm not sure this motion is what we need. I think the motion, in my opinion, needs to be direct our attorney to look at the contract and enforce what's in the contract and bring a report back to this board about those enforcement, if it's being enforced or not. And then we can take action. But that's just, I think it would set the stage more clear for the process of where we need to go. But
can we get our procurement director to come forth and address this, please?
Absolutely, sir.
I'll come back to you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Al Burns, Director of Procurement and Contracts Administration. There are provisions in the contract that will allow us to terminate. However, there is a formal process that we have to go through. We'd have to give them a notification of a notice to cure that will give them 10 days in order to cure this. I've already notified my staff and while I was sitting in the audience to draft something up upon my return back to the office. With that said, when we get back, we will send them a notice to cure. Within 10 days, they have to send to my staff and the project manager, Director Greg Bracken, how they plan on remedying this. And if it is not remedied within 10 days, then that will allow us to terminate the contract.
I apologize, sir. If I could then, let me rephrase my motion that we come back, HART's staff comes back at our next regular board meeting concerning your report on whether or not you've given them notice and for us to go forward.
So we have a
Yes, sir.
rephrase of the motion. Is there some second still there? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Hold on. See hands. Ms. Melendez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. First, again, earlier I was clarifying something for the benefit of the board, but I just very quickly would like to say that, again, I was at the public hearing and being here today, and we really want to thank the public for coming out and expressing your concerns. Regarding this matter, it's twofold. There's the matter of the contract, and then, of course, the law of the land. And I just want to second all of the concern. I can't express enough the mere idea that someone would just be left standing is of the highest concern for us. Hearing it in a board setting, in an open board setting, it's difficult because we then have to respond. And I want to thank the public for bringing that to our attention. And I'd actually like to elevate that and say that if the logistical potential exists to analyze this and make sure that there are not other people that haven't spoken today. In other words, let's review this in its entirety as well as the contract and go from there. Thank you very much. And I'm just basically calling for diligence. Thank you.
Ms. Shanahan, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we need to make sure that we, again, I don't know who the area of jurisdiction is that now oversees the drivers of the taxi cabs.
Let me explain.
But I think that
the PTC is still in existence.
Okay.
Until December 31st.
Okay.
The workings of the PTC that are going on now are still being worked on per se, but the authority to regulate the industry as far as drivers will fall in the hands of the Board of County Commissioners. The issuance of certificates and all that will be done by Doug Belden's office.
Okay.
So right now the PTC is still in existence.
That's
But I
helpful.
guarantee you that regardless of where it's going to fall, we will hear this.
Good, excellent. The other thing is that we should make sure that we have set up an, I don't know how, if we're all just hearing about this through this process of public comment, there clearly is not either a link with the blind, disabled community that they feel that they can report that their cabs are leaving them wherever, at their homes. So there has to be, you are reporting it and they're not reacting?
Excuse me, hold on.
Okay, I just think we need to make sure that we have clear lines to know where these infractions and unconscionable behavior takes place so that we can act on that. And that's the only point.
Yep.
Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Yes. I just like to ask, what's the mechanism if someone from the public, and they're not at a public hearing, have they been calling HART? Do we keep track of those calls? How has this been handled to date?
I'm going to ask our Director of Operations Support, Greg Bracken, to come up. He's also he's our ADA officer. He also handles the contract administration for this particular program.
Greg Bracken, Director of Operations Support, ADA Officer for HART. Yes, we have both vehicles that customers can contact, Yellow Cab directly, and if they call HART, HART takes the comments and we'll send it over to them and ask for a response back. So that's the process that we have in place right now.
So if someone has this issue happen, they call us at HART, or they call Yellow Cab directly?
Correct. Originally it was directly to a Yellow Cab, but after we heard some of the comments, we did it both ways, and we take it both ways now. And we send a complaint that comes in on any of the Yellow Cab service, we send that to Yellow Cab, and then they have to give us a response back to Kimberly Green, who's my manager of customer service. She gets the responses back and reaches back out to our customers.
And does Yellow Cab report to us about how many complaints that they get?
Yes, by every month.
So we record all of this every month?
Correct.
I would request that, I guess this is, maybe could be added to the motion, but that we receive monthly updates, like we do everything else, on the number of reports we have.
I mean, how many complaints like this are we getting on a monthly basis?
Very few. I don't have a number off the top of my head, but it's very few. But we do hear, one that we hear is the first of the month, because the Social Security monies all come in. the wait time for the cabs to get to them is longer at the first of the month. I actually have a meeting scheduled with Yellow Cab the 15th to discuss some of the issues that we're having out there. And we have regular conversations. Like I said, anytime a complaint comes in, they're called directly to respond to the complaints. Mr. Bean is their manager of paratransit services. He reaches out and actually has got one-on-one communications with many of our customers to make sure that they don't have issues with their, most of their cab drivers are contractors, so they have to deal with it on that side of the house. But it's an ongoing process with them, and they have addressed most of our issues and actually taken some of their drivers off of our service that have not been the most ideal cab drivers for us.
Commissioner Kemp, were you through?
Yeah, I'd like to move to amend the motion to include monthly reports from HART so that we are aware of the situation and how many complaints we're getting and you know how those complaints are being dealt with.
I accept the friendly amendment to my motion.
No,
you want to do that?
There's no such thing as a friendly amendment. I don't know how you do it.
Okay,
There's
I
no
get
such
friendly
thing.
all the time.
There's no such thing as a
Chair.
friendly amendment. Is there a second
Okay.
to the amendment?
Second.
Okay, there's a second to the amendment.
It's an amendment to my amendment.
No, amendment to your motion.
To my motion. My motion hasn't been voted on yet. That's all I want to make sure.
Now,
Okay.
wait, process is,
Yeah.
there's no such thing.
I'm
as a
waiting for you because I know you know it.
There's no such thing as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
You had a motion, she made an amendment to the motion, it was second. When we vote an amendment first, then we get incorporated to the motion, then we vote on the motion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further discussion on this issue? Seeing none, we're going to vote on the amendment by Commissioner Kemp. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. We're now on the amended motion. Is there any discussion on the amended motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. Any further discussion on the max, the emission max? Commissioner White, you recognize.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the rules and take up action item C at this time.
Action item C under 2.
Yes.
There's a motion by Commissioner White to waive the rules to take up Resolution R 2017-08-33. There's a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. We're now on Resolution R 2017-08-33. Commissioner White, you recognize.
Thank you. Director Shanahan and to many of the other directors that talked about the need for good public policy and efficiencies, I wholeheartedly agree. I know that the non-elected members of this board probably don't have to think as much about the political element to this process. But I'd like to make some comments and put a motion on the floor, and I think it's a well-thought-out motion. I think it does recognize the need for good public policy, for searching for efficiencies to make this a better, leaner organization, one that offers efficient services, but that also recognizes the concerns that we're hearing from the community today. As it was stated earlier, HART is likely to receive up to $2.35 million in funding from the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. And that has passed the Board of County Commissioners in our first round of budget proceedings. Granted, these are not recurring dollars, but in my opinion, we still have a lot of work to do. And appropriating these funds towards temporarily mitigating the impacts of this plan would allow us to do more necessary work on the plan. As I stated a moment ago, I'm not saying that we don't need changes and better planning. We most certainly do. But what I am saying is that we need more time and more outreach. That's clear to me today in listening to these comments. I know we've had public outreach, but I'm of the opinion that this hasn't translated to the final details of the plan to as great of an extent as possible. While it's true that experts should design the proposed routes The reality is that sometimes robust changes have to be made based upon input from the public. So what I'd like to do at this time is to put a motion on the floor that recognizes that and also recognizes the great likelihood of us receiving this $2 million plus in funding from the county commission. I move to postpone this item to the HART Board meeting at which our final budget is adopted, and to direct HART staff to bring to this board an adjusted plan based upon appropriating $2.35 million in revenues from the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners should these revenues be received.
Is there a second? Motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Murma for discussion. I'm going to pass the gavel. First and foremost, the comment made by that the non-elected officials don't have to look at the political analysis on this. As they sit on this board, they have to look at every analysis, be it political, be it non-political, whatever the case may be. We have a responsibility on this board to serve the people of this area in every possible way we possibly can. We talk about the $2.3 million. That $2.3 million could very well be taken out of the county's budget before we vote on it in September. There's no guarantee that it will stay. So to have the HART staff to back off the plan now and then work on an anticipation that the $2.3 million will be there, I think it's not the proper way we should be doing business on this board. We have a responsibility to the citizens of this county to give them the best service possible that we possibly can give, regardless of where they live, their income, their handicap, whatever the case may be. That's our responsibility. We've already talked about the mere fact that we are woefully behind in our funding of HART. Portland, Oregon has half the population that we have, and they fund their system 10 times better than we do. Denver, of course, is a larger area, but they support their system 6 times better than what we do. There's no guarantee that we will get that $2.35 million from the Board of County Commissioners because we haven't voted on the final budget yet. And we do know that the discussion was it was non-recurring and there was a lot of shakiness going on at a particular point in time. We cannot sit here and say that's going to happen. What we need to start looking at, as Mr. Jacobs said, and we've been said before, and from Mr. Kemp, we got to start looking at a dedicated funding source for HART. We can't continue to bury our heads in the sand and say, oh, we're doing perfectly fine what we have. That is bull crap. We have got to find a dedicated funding source. So I'm going to ask you not to support this motion because this is the wrong thing to do. Our board needs to go forth with the plan that the staff has put into place. And if we go back and the board decides, Board of County Commissioners decide that the $2+ million is adequate and stays in the budget, then they can come back and do whatever they need to do and present that plan to us. But I'm asking you please not to support this motion today. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the concern, Commissioner White. I think what your thoughts are is perhaps to get what didn't occur to happen in the future. But I think procedurally, Commissioner Miller here has really pointed out why that isn't possible. For those of you that aren't maybe understanding this discussion as clearly, last week at the County Commission meeting, I asked for $2.35 million to additionally fund HART from our countywide funding. We are by far, by a long shot, the most underfunded transit system in the nation for a community our size. I've repeated it over and over and over again. In every other jurisdiction in the state of Florida, every single one, there's only 2 counties, as I said before, that fund theirs through an exclusive property tax. We fund it with a millage of 1/2 mil. In Pinellas, they fund it with a millage of 3/4 mil. Both are so pitifully underfunded. It's shameful. It really is shameful. And in the other area, in all the other counties in the state of Florida, the way they fund their transit system is with their countywide, out of their general countywide funds. And so I have been pushing for us to do more to start to move in that direction as they do. We should not treat our very minimal millage as a ceiling, but we should be treating it as a floor, and we should be looking for how we can provide for this very basic need for people to move in this community, for the people to get to work, to get to the hospital, to be served when they have no other options, or to use our system as an option. Again, when I raised up trying to get 2.3 million for 2.35 million for 2 consecutive years, which is the only way you can really plan a transit plan, because you obviously can't have it for 1 year and then not be able to count on it the next year. That was cut down to a single year for $2 million. I hope that this board, or the Board of County Commissioners, will reconsider that decision. There are public hearings that you can go to on September 7th and September 14th on Thursday night at 6 o'clock to let the board know that we should be doing more in that regard. But I also won't be supporting this because of the status of that funding, but I would hope that the county commission will move forward and look, because this is just so desperate.
Commissioner Merman, you recognize.
Okay. Thank you. I guess I want to just clarify, if this motion did not pass and we just went back to moving it forward, what would happen to the fish hawk to McDill? Would there still be a possibility to get that back up to what's happening now? And also, what happens to the Sunshine Line plan working with HART Plus?
We will bring you an update for Sunshine Line, and well, first, thank you, Commissioner, for the questions. We will bring an update on Sunshine Line for Monday as directed. We will continue to coordinate. We've definitely heard today there are gaps in the system. We are the only county in the state where the transit agency is not also the transportation disadvantaged provider, and clearly we need to do a better job with this. So we will come back. At this point, you will have the proposal of 3 trips from the Fishhawk area coming in, and we will have the additional buses out there to handle the load. We do have the ability to enhance that service separately from the $2 million, which will bring a plan back to the county. We will not have anybody standing, and we will not be leaving people behind on those routes.
Okay, but I didn't quite get the answer I was looking for. I mean, are you going to listen to the people in East and South County and go with what they want on this? And are you going to be able to make that adjustment if we move forward today? It looks like we won't be able to do anything more.
I'll defer to Mr. Seward's budget presentation. I'm comfortable that we can accommodate at least 1 additional trip on each route until we have closure on what the board wants to see from service.
I mean,
analyzes a budget.
just remember, this is consistent ridership that's paid for every single day. Why would we want to give up that? I mean, why were you reducing it to begin with?
We're matching up supply to demand. So one thing we see, not just from our trips on the buses, from pulling video screenshots, from being in person, from also pulling screenshots back from the buses, going to the base, as one of the gentlemen noted, the trips that get you there around 7:30 are very full. The trips after that are significantly emptier. One of the emails that we received in from County Commission was a 10-year patron said his bus normally had 8 people, and it had gone up to 10. And there are 38 seats on the bus. So we were attempting to match up where we see the buses being full with the actual capacity of the buses, adding in another express so folks could get home midday and they could get home later. The intent was to match up where we see folks actually riding it.
Okay, I understand that, but if you're busy in the morning and the evening, why don't you just reduce what's happening in between?
That's all they have. They have the morning and the evening. There is no midday service. There's not a bus that leaves the base after 5:30.
But you still cut down the number of trips with the buses.
When we take the number of folks riding and we look at the capacity on the buses, again, the last buses that we're running are 75% of the seats are empty. So we're trying to move those so they match up when the buses are full.
And then what about this, and I'm going to do an amendment. I guess I have to wait to see what passes, but I want to make sure you come back here with a plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Sunshine Line and HART Plus to answer the needs
Yes,
of the
ma'am.
disabled. But I guess I'm not quite getting that assurance that you're going to meet the needs of the people in East County. I think we're still, I'm not quite getting that level of comfort. And we're reducing that. We have no service in South County. You guys, that's where everybody's moving. We have to get some common sense in this and do some marketing in areas where we have the most people living and the most potential riders, and try and get them on the bus. So I'm just kind of frustrated by, I think the plan is good if you live in the city limits. Outside, up to West Chase, Town and Country, down south, still think we're very, very deficient, to be honest.
Commissioner White, you recognize.
Thank you very much. Board members, we have reports of officials at CENTCOM being upset with this plan. We should be supporting our members of the military that fight to defend our country. We have people with disabilities here in the audience today that are upset with this plan. We have a chance with this $2.35 million to cut the impacts in half for a year, for FY18, while we do more work, get back out in front of the public, hone this plan further so that we can come back with the necessary tweaks in FY19. The Board of County Commissioners will have a final budget before HART has a final budget, so we'll know beyond a shadow of a doubt whether or not that $2+ million is going to be available. Board members, the absolute worst case scenario would be that we take a vote on what's before us now in 6 weeks when we adopt our final budget. That's the absolute worst case scenario in the event that that $2+ million doesn't come through. I think that we owe it to the people to do our due diligence and to take this up at that time. We'll know at that point whether or not we'll call it $2 million is in the budget. If it is, again, we have the opportunity to put that money where it counts, into operations, into service, and again, potentially cut the impacts of this in half for a year while we do more, in my opinion, much needed work.
Reverend Wallace, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bowers, rather.
Just don't forget to call me to lunch. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very excited about the work that staff has done to try to plan for our future. The new grid system, I think, will kind of set a basis for addition and to improve the overall service of this community. I was very moved by those that have come to share their opinion and their needs in this meeting. And having said that, I realize that we are putting together a system that is expandable over the period of time. Mm-hmm. We are facing some very financial restraints. And I believe that we have to look long range rather than short range. It causes a problem when we set a system and then have to change it every time. I believe that we need to look at what we have and believe the staff have done the best job they can to give us the information that we need. And should we get some more money, then we'll know what to do with it. But we have to think long range, what we have to work with now with the restraints that we have, so that we do not have to come back next year and change again because we don't have the fund. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Shanahan, you recognize.
I support the intent of the I don't know if it's a motion or it's on the floor. But the one big lesson I learned in Tallahassee is recurring versus non-recurring. And non-recurring dollars are basically one-time dollars, and that's all you can do. So we're talking about money that hasn't even been appropriated, and it's non-recurring. And I think balancing that out with the need to move forward, go forward, you can never communicate enough. I mean, and I hope that in all of our public hearings, we collected every email. I hope that we have associations with all of these groups that are represented with their parent representatives, and they're on our database, and we're communicating with them in a regular form and fashion. And everybody at McDill who wrote a letter, we're communicating with, because I think that this is an iterative process. I don't think this is a definitive process. That's how I view, when they're gonna implement the framework of this plan. If in 6 months they come back and say there are now 5,000 people in South County because they've been educated on this process through the coverage that want to ride buses, we're gonna have to figure that out. We're trying to efficientize the process of the assets that we have with the best service delivery to what the demands of the system are today. And I think that it's, I made my point. So I feel like it's an iterative process. I don't think it's a definitive process. I think we can always do more about educating, and I think at that point we would make accommodations. And that's the point I wanted to make.
We're now on the motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Merman. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposers? No. No. Motion fails. We're now back on resolution R 2017-08-33. What is your pleasure? Mr. Merman, you recognize.
Well, I'm sorry, I put my hand up. I need for somebody to make the motion. Now I'm going to do an amendment. I'm sorry.
What's your pleasure on the resolution?
Move that we pass the resolution.
There's a motion by Councilman Suarez, seconded by Reverend Bowers, to move the resolution. Commissioner Merman, you recognize.
Thank you. I'd like to make an amendment to the motion to ask staff to bring back a report on the service for people with disabilities, and to work in collaboration with Sunshine Line to develop a plan to make sure that no one is left without service, and to also bring a plan back after discussing with the folks at MacDill Air Force Base for the proper bus service that needs to occur between MacDill Air Force Base and Fishhawk Community.
Is there a second to the amendment? There's a second to the amendment. Okay. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Any further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment to the motion, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Opposers likewise. Amendments adopted. We're now back on the motion, amended motion to adopt resolution R 2017-08-33. Is there any further discussion on the motion to adopt the resolution as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Opposers likewise. No. Motion is adopted. We'll now revert back to overview of proposed 2018 budget.
That's it. Thank you. Good afternoon. Jeff Seward, Chief Financial Officer for HART. Typically, at this time of year, we bring to you a pretty sound proposed budget that is pretty close to being balanced. Today, however, the overview I'm going to provide to you is still a little ambiguous based on the discussions that you have had for the majority of this morning and the changes to the COA. So what I wanted to do just very quickly is to go over some real high capture numbers with you of what to expect when we finally come back to the board in September for the public hearings. So early on in the budget discussion of this year, I just wanted to frame again the environment in which we're developing our budget. A lot of the conversation that you've had this morning had talked about our funding and the need for additional funding. The budgetary pressures we're facing for 18 will be most likely the same pressures we're facing for 19 and for 20. So what are those? As you well know, over the last couple of years, we have dug into our fund balance since 2014 to the tune of about $10.4 million. We are trying to ensure that we don't dig into fund balance in the future out years, which is one reason why the COA was so important to address today. Something else that we have over the next 3 years is an overall impact of $4.9 million due to our collective bargaining agreement for our drivers and our mechanics, our 2 bargaining units. The impact for FY18 will be right around $2 million that has to be built into the budget. We're also seeing the continued decline in ridership. A recent ridership announcement from our service planning showed that we, for the first time, hit under $1 million, or 1 million riders in a monthly period. So we're still seeing the decline in that, which hits us in our revenues as well. And then our continued increases in our liability and our overall benefits packages, because again, HART is self-insured, so we absorb the costs of those impacts. So the overview snapshot, and this is a number I gave you way back in February when we first started as an organization to really look at the budget. And this is a $13 million deficit that we saw based on what we thought we would have as far as revenues going into fiscal year 18. Now I call this abstract. This is really the Christmas morning budget from the organization. Right when you go out of the gate, and as most of you know that are involved in public budgeting, the demand and the need early on is not the same need that you end up in September. So we started really high looking at what we had spent over the last couple of years, trying to true up what we spent to what we budgeted, looking at what the TDP at that time looked at additional service for FY18, and where we were looking as far as compensation for our organization. So it was really a really overarching wish list budget. So we kind of moved the organization into a discussion of reality. We started a zero-based budgeting process, and we were able to get that $13 million, we want everything, down to right around 8.5. And from April through the beginning of May, that is the number that we worked hard to be able to reduce. The overall, outside of benefits and liability and those types of self-insurance issues, we have about 20% of our budget that is overhead. We have squeezed that, including those insurance and liability issues. We have squeezed that down to about 5%, excluding those. So the discussion that we have had at the administrative level is we absolutely can't go any further with that reduction on the overhead side without looking at service. So our current deficit is $6.2 million. That's netted with loss in revenue that we're anticipating for next year, as far as not collecting on the fare and pass side of the house. We have actually over budgeted that amount over the last 2 years based on our assumption that ridership would eventually either plateau or rebound. Both of those assumptions were incorrect, so we have had to readjust looking at what our actual pass and fare revenues are looking at for 18, which is considerably less than what we anticipated as we started the budget back in the February-March timeframe. So right now, as we stand this morning, we are at $6.2 million. That's the deficit that has to be addressed prior to us coming to you on September the 11th. So what have we done? And again, prior to this meeting and prior to the decisions that this board made today, we were in a holding pattern determining how to address that $6.2 million deficit. Obviously, the COA has a huge impact to that. You have heard staff today talk about a $5.8 million savings to the overall budget, which obviously takes that deficit down to a very manageable number. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things, issues that were actually brought up this morning that I wanted to address and put into the record about the budget. A couple of things in the $6.2 million deficit. The question had come up from Commissioner White today about the county voted funding. And again, I'll reiterate that that is not included in this deficit. Also not included in this deficit is the $3.1 million of additional ad valorem revenue that HART is anticipating based on an 8.89% increase in property valuations for FY18. That is also not included in this number. Capital funding also is not included in this number. This is operating only. And just as a side note on our capital funding, this will be the first year in almost a decade where there is no local property tax going into our CIP program. A very minimal amount based on the fact that we have to have a match, a local match for a couple of our grants. This is all funded, about $22 million of capital will be funded primarily, 99.9% of it, based on federal and local grants. So again, the reason I talk about the CIP is the fact that the $6.2 million is again operating only, and the CIP you will see in September. Again, the $6.2 million does not represent today's service changes that you approved. And why? We didn't want to anticipate that that would happen. We wanted to make sure that you knew what the deficit was. The COA is off to the side. So what do we do now? Starting this afternoon, HART staff will take those changes and in thousands upon thousands of lines of budget line items, we now have to take the service changes and incorporate those back into the budget. Now that $5.8 million savings is based on an average hourly rate of service. So as we develop the budget, that impact of the service changes may be higher than 5.8 or maybe lower than 5.8. Either case, as HART staff comes back to you on September the 11th, we will have a balanced budget. At that time, if the balanced budget is balanced by fund balance, which I'm hoping it is not, we will have a conversation on how we can mitigate that even further so we don't touch fund balance. Again, the one reason why the ad valorem increase is not included in the $6.2 million deficit is we made a conscious effort going into this fiscal year that any overage based on property valuations would get dumped into fund balance so we can start to build up that piggy bank that over the last 3 years we have dug over $10 million out of. So what we want to be able to do is incorporate the COA changes into the budget, dump the entire ad valorem amount of increased revenue into fund balance, not include in the iteration you see on September the 11th, not include that county voted funding. Leave that off to the side for now until we, obviously on September 11th, we won't know 100% whether or not it has been officially approved. So we will leave that out of the budget for the first iteration that you see on September the 11th. One way we were able to get from 13 to 8 and 8 to 6 was we are looking at, and Ms. Egan had mentioned this in prior meetings and staff had presented, that we are looking extensively at our internal processes. We are looking at functions that transit agencies throughout the country have made a decision to actively outsource. One of them being the count room function. $4 million a year of cash revenue flows to that count room. We have HART staff that's employed counting that money. We are one of very few agencies that actually has full-time employees on the agency's payroll doing that function. As of October the 1st, we will no longer be doing that function. It is being outsourced with a 5-year savings of over $100,000. So we're also looking at ADP for our payroll. We have actively engaged them in a contract this year. However, we will not see the true savings from ADP until the FY19 budget due to the year implementation process that we have to fall within to ensure our business rules and our processes are adaptable, particularly on the bargaining unit side of contract management as far as payroll is concerned. But we will see those savings in 19. And what they are right now, we can't say definitively, but we will start to be able to report in the beginning of the calendar year exactly what we're anticipating being able to shave off of the FY19 budget based on us moving to that transition. You'll notice on the screen we have a series of reductions, but at the same time we have a series of additions. There are a series of things that we need to do as an organization to make sure that although we are very fiscally prudent, we don't become stagnant, particularly on the technology side of the house. We still pursue consultants to tell us how to improve our business. We need to do the upgrades in information technology to be able to support the service plan that you saw today. We want to ensure that we don't dig back into fund balance again for healthcare premiums that are over what we originally budgeted. So we have upped, and the budget that we'll see on September 11th will show that for the first time in 3 years, we're actually budgeting to what we have anticipated spending to be, even though we are actively pursuing as an organization ways to reduce those costs over the next 2 years. The same with general liability claims. We've added a general liability third-party administrator that will greatly improve our review of claims and be able to save some funding on that side of the house. CAD AVL, our system is on the verge of being antiquated. Over the next 2 years, we have to actively look at, one, what our needs are as an organization, and two, how are we going to fund that? A new CAD AVL system can range anywhere from $5 to $10 million in infrastructure costs. So we have to figure out a way we're going to budget that, but first we need to bring in a consultant to actually look at what our requirements need to be for the next year. We have our bargaining contractual increases we've talked about. We've built in a non-bargaining pay for performance, a very small amount, a pool of money for next year for our non-bargaining employees. Then on the reduction side, many governmental agencies have what I either call double counts or accounting fluff that's built into the budget. And a lot of, at least the first few you see on there as far as the OPEB liability expense, the FRS liability expense, we still book the accounting liability for that. But historically, HART has also budgeted an expense in the budget for those services. Most governmental entities don't do that. So we are backing away from that. Does it really reduce the total amount of the budget? It does, because it gives you a more real look at what the spending needs to be budgeted at for the final or for the next year. We typically had anywhere from a $1.5 to $2 million contingency in place. We haven't eliminated the entire contingency. Well, we are bringing it down to the sub $500,000 level. We've looked at or reclassed and eliminated vacant positions within the organization. Our fuel costs, based on the movement to compressed natural gas, our diesel costs are decreasing for next year. Our per gallon for diesel and per gallon for CNG have gone down based on our consortium contracts. Small expenditures such as travel, per diems, and those types of things have been reduced to levels which will be hard to manage to get staff our training that was required, but we're looking at every avenue to be able to save money. Our fare pass revenues have decreased. We have some park and ride leases which are no longer in service, but we were paying for them. We have eliminated those. We had a giant TIF payment to the city of Tampa for $600,000. That was paid off. Very happy about that. That is a savings as well. Over some IT infrastructure, we financed some infrastructure needs. We went ahead and paid all of those out-year payments this fiscal year to ensure that we freed up that money over the next 2 fiscal years. And then in 2017, the current year we're in, we had a lot of one-time expenses. We had the TDP, we had the COA. Those expenses were also pulled out and eliminated as far as returning expenses. So again, we're starting with a $6.2 million deficit. Starting this afternoon, we will start to incorporate the service changes into the line item budget. At the Finance and Audit Committee meeting this month, it's 2 weeks from today, we will have a high-level budget that has taken all of those changes from the service model and incorporated. Now, that budget that I present on that day most likely will still have a small deficit that I will fill with fund balance for discussion purposes. But again, we'll talk about how we want to mitigate that. Mitigating a difference of 6.2 to 400,000 is a totally different conversation to have. So with that, where are we today? The COA consideration has been done. August 21st, Finance and Audit Committee will be bringing back a proposed budget that'll have that 6.2 down to a balanced format with revenues. And then our September 11th to September 25th public hearings, which you will have a fully balanced budget by law to review, consider, and hopefully approve. And that concludes my budget presentation update.
Are there any questions? Ms. Shanahan, you recognize.
Sorry, this might be an off-the-wall question, but I was just sitting here thinking with all of the, has HART ever gotten any money from Visit Tampa Bay in terms of an allocation as it relates to the visitors' impact on transit?
No, not.
Have we ever even pitched them in terms of getting some money from them?
Only in the context of the streetcar. The streetcar board has asked Visit Tampa Bay for funding for specific marketing campaigns, for assistance with special promos and things like that, but HART has not.
Well, I would put that in your rostrum of potential out-of-the-box thinking from a revenue source.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. We go back to our regular meeting agenda, approval of action items, resolution R 2017-0831. There's a motion to approve that. A second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let them know by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. Motion adopted. Resolution R 2017-0832. There's a motion to approve. Second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let them know by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. Motion's adopted. We're now into the chair's report, and at this late date, I wouldn't dare bring up a chair's report. Chief Executive Officer's report.
Nothing to add, sir.
General Counsel's report. Smart, smart, smart. Okay, public input regarding general concerns. Are there anyone speaking on general concerns? Seeing none. Any old business? Any new business? Any monkey business? Seeing none, we're adjourned.
So Andrew's watching us and we're like, are we up on a view slide? What's going on?
I don't know. He just says that he took this one and he wrote